What's up, guys? I'm here today with Mr. Ayam Sirias. I'm sure you're familiar with him based on off his own channel, good channel, as well as him talking with Barbarossa. And this MGTOW talk just came about completely spontaneously. I was lying down on my couch, being a lazy fuck, just chatting with him, and we were just kind of talking about some kind of back to the basic stuff, some basic red pill development in our own paths. And I thought it was interesting enough that this should just be kind of aired. And yeah, so that's where we're at. And specifically, because I like to focus on specific topics, even if it's considerably less lofty than some of the others, I'd like to focus on one thing. And we were talking a lot about our indifference towards women. And it seems to be, in my observation, a reasonably rare thing overall, I'd argue. And we're talking about, he'll talk in a second, I'm just giving the intro, how age and our experiences have contributed to that. So I'm not even, since we had already talked about this sort of off the record, I don't know how to approach this really, but I guess one way of approaching is that you know, our position of being totally, completely indifferent to women is, I would say, relatively rare. I don't get that impression from other people, other MGTOW, as being just completely indifferent. And when I say indifferent, I mean I don't feel anything positive towards them, and I feel nothing negative towards them. It's just they're kind of like the furniture, or the trees outside. They're just there, and whatever.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. And what we were talking about earlier, before we started this conversation, was the exact same thing. Where, as um, I have no desire to seek them out. I have no desire to hate them either. And they are just there on the side, a part of my life that if they come into it, then they do. That's where I stand.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it just seems highly unlikely that they ever come into. We were just talking about how we both enjoy playing video games more than hanging out with women. And I
Yes.
think
Yes.
I think it's I can actually understand why some people find this dubious and they just can't. They're just in a state of shock. They just can't actually fathom that you would quite literally be more comfortable spending several hours playing a video game than spending several hours with a woman. And I think part of that is age and experience. And you're a little past 40. I'm very close to 40, and
Uh,
you go through these experiences, and first off, a lot of it just makes you jaded. I was talking about before. I mean, so I don't know how many of you know my biography. I mean, without personal details, obviously, but I'd been through a couple of what I like to call marriages and relationships, and even before I discovered Barbarossa, it was definitely my first and best introduction to red pill stuff. It just makes you jaded. My last relationship marriage with this very attractive young Korean girl, 11 years my junior, she cheated on me. Then she dumped me over Skype when I had a tumor on my neck and I was looking for a new job and I was seriously stressed out. And I just kind of, okay, yeah, been there, done that.
yeah.
Um, and then you add that with the things you actually learn about human nature and the way men women interact, and you brew this concoction, and in the end of it, you just personally, I feel you just feel nothing towards the whole gender issue. Personally, that's just me. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm very similar, actually, to your thoughts, and I think the only difference for me, maybe, and I don't know how it might change if circumstances changes with me, is the fact that I'm with my son. I'm
Yeah,
raising my son on my own, and I don't. I would rather I would rather put 5 hours, 10 hours into making a MGTOW video or playing a video game than I would in trying to communicate with a woman in order that she might um, like me or be a part of my life or give me some false hope. No,
Yeah,
I'm not in that
we
into
were
that.
talking about this before. I mean, I don't. Everyone knows what my position on the illustrious Sandman is, but I don't know if you guys know, but I Am Serious had done an informal interview with Sandman, and I'll be posting a link, so check it out. One interesting thing that Sandman said in the video, one of very few interesting things he tends to say, was that every man is somehow secretly looking for some sort of Nawalt. That might be his audience, but to me, this is a completely foreign idea. And I think to people who are just outside of MGTOW circles, and I guess this is an extremist position, and by extreme I don't mean negative, but it's represented by few people. It's not it's not something that they can even remotely identify with. And we were just talking about as well
Yeah.
how a lot of the stuff that you actually learn in a formal way, by watching videos and then reading up on stuff, is stuff we already knew. I mean, when I was in my late 20s, early 30s, not yet quote unquote red pill, I, I mean, you knew all this stuff, and yet there was some mechanism. And we talked about this, how
Hmm.
we need some sort of female in our life to feel complete. But then when you actually tally up the benefits, compared to the downsides, it's strangely unattractive, the proposition. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not even strangely unattractive. It is very upfront
Yeah, but I
unattractive.
say strangely because it requires a kind of unraveling of our own former emotional needs, and basically I'm a big believer in biology. I think a lot, yeah, these are legitimate needs, but it becomes socialized on a larger platform, society we call it, and then we hear it all the time, and then yeah, it's strange in that sense because I think in my 20s, and a lot of men were like this, we certainly were looking for something that I might refer to as a figure of salvation, some sort of salutary figure in the form of female who's gonna, once I get that, it's everything's gonna be fine. We
Well, we were chasing the pussy. I mean,
well, for me, I mean, I've had enough sexual partners in my life, but I've never really went on these sort of pussy chasing hunts in my youth. I mean, I did have a bunch of friends with benefits, which is, well, I think probably the majority of my sexual experiences had come from. But yeah, I had a fair number of serious marriages or relationships or whatever you want to call them. And for me at least, and I think this is this male mother need that I've since dispensed with, a lot of this was just looking for some sort of overarching salutary figure that's going to take care of you in times of need and what have you. And I think that's ultimately a much stronger urge than the I just need to get laid, especially when it comes to,
right.
I need a female in my life. I need a female in my life. If all you need to do is get laid, I mean, where I live in Germany, there are plenty of brothels everywhere around, and they're not that expensive.
A
So I don't use them, but if you're really that keen on it, go for it. So it's not
lot of
just
places you can empty your balls,
yeah,
basically.
yeah. It's not. That's not. I don't think that's the issue. That's not the thing that really affects men. I think the whole. I mean, the getting
No.
laid thing is. It's almost kind of like a pseudo cover. I think that I was actually just watching John the Others and Barbarossa's talk on a lot
Hmm.
talk about Roosh and the PUAs, and it's true that the whole getting laid tends to be a measuring stick, but deep down, this is what the PUAs don't talk about. There is that secret craving in many men for this sort of Mother Teresa figure. I mean, using metaphorically, sort of someone to take care of you, figure of
Yeah.
salvation, whatever. And I think that's the hardest thing to part from. It's not getting laid. I mean, if I
Yeah.
really wanted, I could spend €100 and get a pretty decent hooker. No interest in it, but whatever. That's not the issue.
Yeah.
But if men can't really part with that notion of the fact that women don't look at men in that way, men secretly want, of course, this I'm going to take care of you and blah 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 blah, but they're not. that's not how women look at men. And I think that's the biggest thing. And then you add the age thing to it. You get older, and as Barbarossa loves to say, juice isn't worth the squeeze. I can't. For me, all these people out there, men and women, who just say, "Oh, you need a relationship," or you have to, you need this, and you're just in denial. I mean, I honestly can't relate to them. Like I said, I'd rather be spend the weekend spending 10 hours with The Witcher 3 nonstop than spending any time with a woman. It's a fact.
Yeah, me too, man. Me too, man. I would rather, I would rather spend the day playing Minecraft with
Yeah,
my kid, than even trying to go out and find some female companionship. And it is companionship. It's
yeah,
not
yeah.
pussy. It's companionship.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Look, I'm not a someone who just flat out denies that there are benefits. I mean, there are hormonal benefits. There's the exchange of oxytocin, all of that. But once again, it just comes back to, is it worth all the effort to get that? And that's going to come down to the individual. To me, it's just, why would I do that? You've been there, you've done that, and
Yeah. It's failed. That
it's
I mean, that's the big part for me, is because I've been married and divorced. So for me, it's like I've been
guys
there,
really
I've done
married,
that.
not just Stardust married.
No, 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 really, yeah,
Yeah,
really
yeah,
married. Been there, done that shit, and it's like, why would I put myself through that shit a second time? I mean,
yeah.
it's
Now, to
ridiculous.
play the devil's advocate, if I were someone of a more traditionalist bent, or someone else, I said, well, just because you failed once and you chose the woman and blah blah blah. Back in the earlier days, when I guess the primary opposition, if you want to even call it that, to MGTOW and MGTOW related concepts came from what we call the TradCon camp. There was this
Yeah.
whole idea of choosing the right woman, and ultimately all of this sort of was our fault for making poor choices. And without a doubt, in retrospectively, there had been some red flags that now, knowing what I know 15, 20 years ago, sure, I would have picked up on them, and I probably would have avoided things. But I think one thing that people just don't want to be open about is something that Barbara Russ and I have talked about a lot, is that essentially the relationship between men and women is mutually exploitative. We both exploit each other for different reasons,
Yeah.
and sometimes there can be similar interests and all this stuff, but at the end of the day, generally speaking, it's mutually exploitative. Most of the time, men want a woman for that sort of motherly figure and for a good blowjob and a fuck, and a woman wants the guy to take care of her,
Yep.
and that's pretty much it. And
Yep.
people have this romantic notion. I think a lot of guys, even men going their own way, still cling to that it's something other than that, or it can be something other than that.
Yeah. Well, men are men. I don't know, men. Correct me if I'm wrong, but men are far more romantic than women are,
Oh,
and
absolutely. I mean, I feel like a fossil now. I can't even identify myself. But back in the day, 15 years
mm,
ago, oh yeah,
mhm.
I would write poetry. I'd engage in artistic activities. I would, I do the whole shebang. Trying to impress the woman in an effort to woo her. And I mean, I did that. Absolutely.
Well, doesn't even history attain
Atesis, yeah,
surmounted
absolutely,
that? Yes.
absolutely. I mean, look at all the great poets, not all of them, the vast majority of poetry, love poetry, written by men to honor women. Sure,
Yeah.
that's all there.
Songs, poetry, artwork,
Yep.
cathedrals. Wasn't it
Whole
the
war fought over Helen of Troy.
yeah? Wasn't it even what's the place in India? The
Taj Mahal.
Taj Mahal. The
Yeah.
Taj Mahal, wasn't that built for a woman?
Allegedly, yeah, that's what I heard. But the
But even if it's allegedly, the point is that at every turn, I think, in history, uh, major moments of history were made because men decided to be romantic,
well, yeah, I mean, there
even
just
for
comes.
bloodlust.
Sure, sure. I mean, the centerpiece, for example, of Dante's Divine Comedy, apart from his god, is this woman Beatrice, who's this sort of beatified goddess, more or less, who's placed sort of centrally in his poetic works. I mean, it's all over, and I think most of us experience it to varying degrees. I've always been someone who's been sort of, I don't know, verbally and artistically inclined, so all that poetry shit and art shit came naturally to me, especially back in the day when I still was trying to woo women in my 20s or whatever. And
Yeah,
I found I also found out that they don't want that. They just want me to buy them dinner. They want me to spend money on them. That's what they want. That's just
of
an added
course.
bonus.
You know
Uh,
how many times? I mean, how many songs has a man written for a woman? You know, how many poems? You know,
yeah,
it's ridiculous.
yeah, and I think once you realize that and just all this other stuff that comes with it, it's just the juice isn't worth the squeeze. I mean, I'm very careful about my time, and if I feel like I'm wasting my time, I don't want to do it. Time's
Yeah,
limited, life's short, and all the. I look back on the time I spent in all those relationships. I mean, obviously, I think I wouldn't be where I am mentally today had I not been through it all. But yeah, was it a waste? I think in largest measure. I mean, I could have done a lot of things
yeah.
if
No,
I hadn't wasted my time, say, with a borderline personality disorder girl. You know, 2 years
trust me.
2 years down the drain, plus all this other stuff. And yeah, maybe I should have been more careful in my choices. But I
Well,
think
the
the lesson,
problem is nobody told you about that. Nobody forewarned you about that.
yeah,
I mean,
and yeah, especially when you're dealing with mental illness. I mean, I thought I could save her. This was 15. This was a long time ago, but I thought I could save this girl. I did everything I could. And then ended up suffering from basically a mental breakdown due to some sort of transference thing, and at least that's what the shrinks told me back in the day. And but the answer to this, according to our detractors back in the day, was you just need to pick them better. But my point, in this day and age, at this hour in 2015, is that even if there were some perfectly compatible women, that's still going to require a lot of effort and me foregoing things I like to do
mhm.
that she's going to require time, and that's just time I prefer to spend doing other things. And there's not, if you want to actually spend time with a woman, I don't have any problem with that. But what gets me is these people are just kind of their jaws drop. I'm like, how can you say that? You mean you'd rather play a video game or watch a flick or fucking lie on your couch and read a book? And yeah, I would.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, I could speak for myself, but I personally have lost a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of money, a lot of my
Same,
own
same, same.
personal, yeah, my own personal production, my ability to produce lost because of a woman's wiles, her will, and my attention to her. And
Oh well, yeah, yeah.
I've never look, I've never experienced that with let's say just a male friend or or just a friend or someone in my life that was there to really support me. But when it comes to putting that much dedication into a woman, I don't care if you call it marriage or if you call it common law or whatever you want to call it. At that point, you you really are being set up to lose a lot of your momentum. Your momentum is gone.
Well, in your case, as you were pointing out before, if you had been in the great land of Canada,
Hmm.
then your situation, in all likelihood, almost certainly, would have turned
It would
out
have been
differently
worse.
than
Yeah.
if you do. I mean, it's unfortunate that you have to live in, I don't know, what is it, 40 degree steamy misty jungles, but still, yeah, there are some benefits.
Yeah, yeah, of course. I've got that benefit, but to be honest with you, man, I would trade any benefit that I have today, minus my son. That has always been my priority. But minus that, I would give up any benefit that this so-called jungle might have given me, and this different culture, and the way women are, and a lack of feminism, or whatever it might, or not just a lack of feminism, but an addition of corruption. Where I can just put down money, and people will do what I want them to do. You know,
Yeah.
I would give that up 100%.
Well, I
If
think. I'm sorry. Please continue. I'm being rude. Please.
No, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, if I could only get back the things, my desires, the things that made me tick. I was making comic books. I was writing music. I was doing all of these things as an individual human being. And as soon as I added a woman into my life as a wife, it all disappeared. It just fucking disappeared.
Well, how much? I mean, once again, playing devil's advocate here. How much of that would you say people would say accuse you? So, well, all of that was motivated by your pursuit for women, and without that, see, you're just an empty husk. I mean, I've heard things of similar sort.
I don't. God, man, right now, I look back and I think, I mean, all of my pursuits. I have to think about my pursuits as an individual, and everything I was doing. I was in line. I had goals, and then suddenly, I decided to get married, and she got pregnant, and I had a child. Everything changed to the point where everything that was making me happy, or that was pushing me forward, disappeared 100%. And not because I had a child, but because a woman was standing there saying, "You are not allowed to pursue these things anymore." In
Yeah.
very simple terms. Very simple terms.
Yeah, but once again, people would just say, "Well, if you'd chosen the right one, she would have encouraged you," and blah blah blah. I'm sure you've heard this.
Oh, fuck. You know what? How many times are you going to hear that from other men? I mean, how
Well, it's
many
not
times
just
do you have
that.
to
I
hear
think it's
that?
actually mostly women that are inclined to say, "Well, you just chose the wrong one. The correct one would have encouraged you in your musical endeavors," and blah 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 blah.
You know what? One of the reasons I married that woman is because she was a good singer.
Hmm.
She could sing very well. And I thought, hey, we have something in common. Fuck that shit. Something in common. I'm tired of these guys that go, no, you have to find somebody that has something in common with you, and you have something it's bullshit. It's absolute bullshit.
Well, I think the real obstacle to the whole, we need to have something in common argument is that, once again, men and women exist in this essentially mutually exploitative relationship to each other.
Yes.
One
Yes.
side can gain the upper hand. It both on a subconscious level, I would argue, are vying for a greater degree of control.
Yes.
And you might have as common interests going for you, but once again, we are descended from creatures that developed along very different evolutionary lines where we have different reproductive interests, and that translates into a whole lot of different behavioral manifestations in how we interact with each other. I'm not saying it's impossible. People, men and women, of course, they put aside their differences and they kind of deal with it. But for me, I don't want. It's not even a question. I just don't want to deal with it. Period.
Yeah, yeah.
And
That's where I am too.
yeah,
I don't want to deal with it at all. I've been through the shit, and what's funny, man, is my, I can say this: my relationship with any woman now is not a relationship that when I see a woman, I don't look at her and say, "I wonder what similarities she has." What interests she has that are similar to mine. I never think that anymore. Never,
yeah.
because it's bullshit.
Well,
It's a lie.
yeah, we were talking about before Voltron This before your time. A lot of you guys, Voltron was this cartoon in the '80s, but and unicorns and stuff, and how we just, as I said, Sandman claimed in that interview that every man is secretly chasing an Walt, and I don't spend even a millisecond of the day thinking about some woman out there who is gonna somehow match up with me and save me from myself with the world. I just yeah, I did that 15 years ago. Sure, I think a lot of us did, most of us, maybe
Yeah.
even all of us.
Most
But
of us probably did. Yeah.
yeah, but the time is long past. I think the combination of the aging process, along with the kind of information you get when someone, as I make my own video content, and you make
Mm.
your own uh, researching things and trying to understand stuff. It just puts me at such a distance from the kinds of problems I used to face when I actively pursued these things that, once again, I mean, my perspective on women is very clear. People who are newcomers to my channels, I don't hate women. I don't even have anything against them. Totally indifferent to them. I just look at them as any other object in the world, certainly worthy of study because, yeah, I mean, they are an
Yeah.
important factor in human civilization without doubt because of our
Yeah.
interactions. But I don't feel anything positive or negative towards them. And
Yeah.
that is the product of many experiences with them, in addition to all of the knowledge, what we've sometimes called red pill knowledge, a term somewhat corrupted by the illustrious Sandman, but yeah, it still has some validity.
Not just Sandman nowadays. It's
Uh,
been
er- er-
corrupted by.
I don't even know what that means. What does red pill even mean? I'm just so reluctant to use it. I mean, what is red pill? Does that mean drinking decaf instead of caffeinated coffee? I mean, it's just everything is red pill these days. I think that's part of, that's just a consequence of what happens when something goes viral. In some sense, MGTOW has grown viral, but it does lose a little bit of its definition. What does that mean? It's not. It's You actually have to explain what you mean by this now. Whereas a couple of years ago, it was pretty clear what you were talking about when you were talking about red pill. I mean,
Well, consider what's his name, Roosh V,
yeah,
and Prison Planet.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
what the fuck?
Oh yeah, yeah. Stefan Molyneux always talking about taking the red pill. I don't like. I try to. I kind of shun the term now. I don't even like it. I don't really want to use it because it means almost nothing. But basically, all the stuff you've taken in through the years and absorbed the knowledge and listening and observation and yeah, I'm not completely detached in the sense that I still have friends, quote unquote, blue pill friends,
Right.
that are pursue relationships and deal with all the bullshit that I come to know and that we're all familiar with. So, it's just juice is just not worth the squeeze. And I realize that I think that's probably most likely the case for older guys, such as ourselves, rather than the really young guys. I
Yeah.
don't know. I mean, I've thought about this a couple of times. If I were really young, 15, even 20 years younger, would I be able to have, without all that basis of experience and what have you, would I be able to just approach the world in a similar way? I mean, if I could be incredibly productive and,
Well, you'd be
tons
the
of things.
next fucking Einstein, man.
I don't know about that, but one thing I would have loved to have given a shot at is voice acting. I've been, this isn't even my, I
Well, there
only,
you go.
yeah, yeah. No, over the years, tens of thousands of people have told me, you should have done that. And well, a little too late now. The amount of money it costs to get involved and what have you. But still, there are a lot of things I could have pursued, and that have opened up really as a consequence of just being awakened to all of this.
Yeah.
And I've said this before, but everyone knows. I think I have Barbarossa to thank for this. I mean, without his videos initially, my life, I don't know, I probably would have been jaded and skeptical. I don't know if I would have been able to discover some of the things that really give my life internal meaning and just kind of keep me going doing the things I do. So,
Yeah.
we talk frequently, but brother, thanks for that again.
I'll tell you, man. You guys both have done a real big favor to a lot of men, and at least you can hang your hat on that. Okay, at least.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, I do take a different approach than a lot. I hope people can appreciate that. I'm more about just getting knowledge out there and understanding. And I actually do ultimately believe, not because I think my way is best, but that it's better to be indifferent towards women than angry and hostile towards them, because that doesn't get
Yeah.
you anywhere. And actually, a lot of the negativity, well, I certainly understand the anger phase to some degree.
Hmm.
I think it's in every man's best interest to move past that as quickly as possible, really, because you're going to be more productive, you're going to be happier, you're going to be more leveled out, if you just if you do your best to move past that and understand that and kind of depersonalize the whole thing. It all seems really personal, and in some sense it is, but in some sense as well, you are part of this sort of this big experiment going on called human civilization, and you fit in the puzzle just like everyone else, and so your past relationships, and you can look at them under a critical lens and not get too upset. And I think that's my approach, and that's my recommendation, not my edict, as some people claim. And I think that's probably the best way of approaching these issues. Yeah.
No, I absolutely agree. I mean, I struggle with that a lot, actually, in my personal life. The anger, I do.
Yeah, everyone's at a different stage, and everyone. I think personally, for me, I've always been a bit of a, I don't know. I mean, I certainly had my moments of writing poetry and shit, but I was sort of the complete opposite as well. I could be really sort of hyper rational. And as I was telling you before, my last relationship or marriage or whatever, this
Hmm.
11-year junior, very attractive Korean, virginal, blah blah blah, whatever. She cheated on me, and she ended over Skype when I had a tumor in my neck and I was looking for a job, and I just I was already so jaded and cynical by then, or already kind of aware of what was going on. Like, okay, yeah, yeah, sucks, and
Yeah.
gotta find that job, gotta get this tumor taken out. All right, you have a nice one. It So for me, I think it's easier, and I don't expect everyone's different. I think a lot of guys, if the longest relationship I ever was in was probably about 3.5 or 4 years. But there are guys that have been in relationships for a decade or so. I mean, that probably takes a
Yeah.
longer time to process. Guys who've actually been officially married, guys with children, all this stuff. I mean, I
Yeah.
can't really imagine. I'm not going to claim to. Let's say you've been married to some woman for 20 years, right, or
Mhm.
15 years. You've reproduced with her and all this stuff, and all of a sudden, boom, she drops. She drops the pen and the paper on you, as it were, and yeah, I don't know how that would have made me feel, but still, I still think even in those cases, being angry is only hurts you more than it hurts.
Yeah.
They don't care if you're in a hostile relationship or in a divorce situation. It's pretty obvious that the opposite party doesn't really care about you, so it's
No.
really in your best interest to start caring about yourself. And one story actually comes to mind. I don't know if you know him, or I know somebody, Patrick Henry. Um, if you're watching this,
Okay.
dude, salute you. But Patrick Henry, he doesn't really. I don't even. He still has a channel. It's called Life After Women. But anyway, he called himself Patrick Henry, and he had the. I hate to say it because it sounds like I'm actually down, but it's sort of the standard horror divorce story. And he was the blue pill and taking care of his wife, and I think he has two children. And turns out his wife was having an affair, and it turned into a divorce, and he killed himself and ended up in the fly. And it sounds like I'm trivializing that, but this scenario has become, unfortunately, so run of the mill that it unfortunately sounds that way. But he started learning meditation, and he really kind of picked himself up, and a lot of it had to do with this dissipation of anger and being upset. The past is done, gentlemen. For those of you who are still angry, there's nothing we can do about it. We can learn from it and move on. And you're doing yourself a personal disservice by clinging to your anger. It's not an
Yeah.
accusation. That's not me being an asshole. It's because I actually have your interests in mind. You're going to be a lot better off not feeling angry.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree because I've been through that anger, and I still it still comes back to me occasionally, and I have to deal with it every single time. It's like a how can I say it? It's like a horrible friend that just keeps popping up that you don't want to see.
Yeah. Well, I think I can. I mean, it's a terrible analogy, but if, if it's a person with a chemical addiction, this is
Yeah.
classic of smokers, right? And Now, I haven't smoked in a lot. I quit cold turkey one day and never picked it up since. But I know people that have quit and then a year later they start. And it's kind of I can imagine it's something like that. You think you've had it, you put it past you, but then comes the nicotine, and then
Yes, yes.
it's
That's
yeah,
exactly what it's like,
yeah,
man.
yeah, yeah,
Exactly what it's like. And especially for these men, like you were mentioning, that have gone through this shit. Um, they they will go through the motions. And like you said, this Peter guy who was trying meditation and trying to fix himself, there's always these moments that will relapse into your mind. And it's not nicotine, it's not alcohol, it's not cocaine, it's not some kind of drug. It's an anger,
yeah.
and it just pierces you. It's incredible, man.
Yeah, and
Absolutely
I
incredible.
totally get that. But the fundamental problem with that is that the rest of the world, I hate to say it, doesn't give a shit. You know, women and other men
Yep,
generally, they don't give a shit about your anger. In fact, they
absolutely,
think you're wrong to be angry.
absolutely.
And I don't like to use the term wrong because it's inaccurate, but it's not helpful,
Yeah,
uh, because what you want to do, this is my personal opinion, is foster a relationship of indifference to these kinds of people. People are going to be hostile towards you. You don't need to be hostile back to them. You just need to say, okay, have a nice day, and you do your own thing. That's what going your own way is all about.
exactly.
But that anger that they don't care about, the rest of the world doesn't care about it. I think one thing when you fuck take the red pill, man. I can't even say that. When you learn all this stuff, when you learn all this stuff,
Yeah.
you learn that, let's face it, the world specifically about men cares a lot less about men for many reasons I've talked about before. I'll not repeat them, than it does about women.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why I'm not an MRA is I don't think we can change that. And so the best thing we can do is accept that and work with that. And for me, the best thing that works has been fostering an attitude of pretty much indifference to people who are going to be hostile towards me. And, that doesn't mean I'm not willing to talk to women if they have something interesting to say, like Girl White Swat or maybe someone else. I'll talk to them
Hmm.
and whatever. But it's just I don't think anger would for me these days would just cloud my
Yeah.
thinking. And I just don't have it in me anymore. I'm so far removed from this stuff.
Yeah.
People talk about when I have friends will sometimes say, "Oh, my relationship or my wife," and I don't even I can only distantly relate to it anymore. And so yeah,
No, that's a good place to be, actually. And that's actually kind of a form of meditation. It's a form
yeah,
of
yeah.
it's a form of fasting, as you mentioned before
Yeah, well,
in one of your
I
videos.
suck at actual meditation. I'm just not. I think people have natural talents for things. I'm just not very good at. But I do have a kind of. It's more of a sort of a thought-based meditation, and meditation is supposed to be thoughtless in a sense. But it's
Right.
or I just kind of I incline back and I just think about how big everything is out there and how small I am, and it tends to just put things in perspective.
Well,
It's hard.
I would say that's a form of meditation. It's a form of fasting, like you said with food.
Yeah,
You're fasting with your emotions. That's
yeah.
what you're doing, and that is even harder.
Yeah, I don't
That
know. I mean, for me, I guess I've done it for so long now that it's just become natural not to really feel any particularly strong emotion either way about a lot of things. But it's given me a life that's a lot calmer than it used to be, a lot more laid back. Doesn't mean I don't get upset about shit. I was annoyed when I was in Rome because it was too hot and they gave me the wrong hotel room or whatever. But by and large, yeah, it's just I'm able to keep things in perspective, and this is all just due to just a different take on things, just looking at things from a different looking glass, and
Yeah. You know what, man? I want to talk to you a little bit more about th- this concept.
sure,
And but can you give me like a couple minutes? I gotta run downstairs. This is what I wanted. This is what I was fascinated about. Okay.
okay,
I was really fascinated about your concept, talking about fasting, because very few people talk about that shit, man. And
Yeah. Okay. Um,
well, I'm very familiar with it because I've been a Muslim for, I don't know, 10 years or so.
yeah, but
And
I think
it's
that's just to interrupt briefly, and I'm terribly sorry. The
no, it's
kind of
okay. Go
fasting
ahead.
they do is not proper fast. It's more like intermittent, I mean, because you do break fast
Yes, it's
eventually.
intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
Yes, I know that. I know that. I know that absolutely. But this is the thing that I'm very fascinated about. The benefits of fasting. And I watched your video. I listened to your video, and I agree with it. Um, but there is a benefit that you didn't mention because if I recall correctly, you didn't want to bring up anything religious, which I understand
Yeah.
when it comes to the concept of fasting, because personally, neither do I. But there is an avenue of fasting which I've experienced, even through intermittent fasting, as the such of Ramadan is a level of discipline, a level of self control.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I mean,
It can certainly bring it about, but once again, I think discipline and self control is a highly individual thing, and it certainly can help foster that. Although, yeah, yeah, yeah. No, why don't you expand on that?
okay, let me expand on that. Basically, what I'm saying is that, come on, let's face it. Let's look at human beings and their desires and the things that they need to survive: food, water, well,
Food and water,
air.
air. That's
Yeah,
it. Yep.
yeah, right. And then you go into the lower levels of sex, right?
Well, that would
A
be
lot of
higher
men.
levels.
Oh,
If you're using Maslow's pyramid of needs, those would be the absolute base desires, and then above the food, water, oxygen, then you're
yes,
gonna go to the other stuff. Yeah. So yeah.
right. But this is the thing about fasting. Fasting makes you actually and physically and willfully deny yourself things that lie at the bottom of Maslow's pyramid,
Yeah.
right? And to do that, I think, in my opinion, and this is just my experience of the whole concept, is that it really gives an individual an understanding of willpower, I guess, if I can say it that way.
Yeah.
Do you know what?
Yeah. Sure. Sure. I mean, I actually have to fast occasionally just because I'm sometimes really uncontrolled with my eating habits, so I have to do it to balance it out. But
Mm,
yeah, I mean, once I commit to it, I'm committed. If I decide, actually, I'm planning on fasting tomorrow because I ate a bit too much today and the day before.
mhm,
If I say tomorrow I'm gonna do a fast for 3 days, that's what I do.
mhm.
Uh, I think it certainly can help develop a sense of willpower. You do point out something important. It is denying what is his essential need beyond anything. This isn't just turning down sex. It's you need to
Yeah.
eat, and it's one thing I've noticed in conversing with people about fasting is that it is such a varied experience. I don't experience it as pleasant. I haven't been doing it all too long, but I find in particular the first 2 days to be pretty unpleasant.
Yeah.
Most I've ever made have been 5 days in a row without eating. I don't see personally the purpose. I know people do 3 week water fasts and whatever. I'm not really into that. I do it for strategic reasons. So really
Yeah.
anywhere 3 or 5 days, even just 2 days, that's fine with me. But the first 2 days tend to be pretty tough, and even sometimes the third day. After that, it gets a little bit easier. But it's definitely for me not a pleasant experience. But I just kind of see it as a necessary experience.
See, there you go. I mean, you're denying yourself a necessity to life, but in that practice, you are developing this sort of, I don't know, willpower, this discipline.
Well, I think it's. I mean, I look at everything from this is related to what I was saying before from the bigger from a bigger picture, a bigger perspective. I sort of recline back and just think about things. Now, I don't want
Hmm.
to get too technical, but basically, caloric needs can be summarized in what we call a sort of weekly caloric balance. So within a week's time, you can either take in enough calories to meet whatever your body weight, age related limits, maintenance requirements are, or less, or more, or whatever.
Hmm.
Now, for me, like I said, I don't. I'm obviously pretty a-religious, so it's just for me a sort of a scientific, technical thing. If I'm on 2 days in a row, I'm eating about 3,000 calories, which is about 1,000 calories each a day over my maintenance per day. I have to balance that out. So I just sort of look at the bigger perspective of things. Okay, well, during the week, if I fast now for 2 days, I can balance this out in the following way. So for me, it's kind of a technical affair. There's certainly discipline attached to it, but I'm more interested in the effects it has
Uh-huh.
and how it makes me feel.
Do you
And
think that, but don't you think that the discipline aspect of it has some benefits?
oh yeah, no, there's look obviously being disciplined, which I can be incredibly. I'm kind of an either or person when it comes to everything. I'm either shit faced undisciplined and eating total fucking shit, or I'm perfectly on track with no deviations and I can fast for days in a row. So it definitely it definitely can have that benefit. It's just I think people are really individual, and in my experience, I don't know that everyone can do it really easily. Just like we're talking before, not everyone can let go of their anger easily. Some might never be able to.
Right.
Some people just, they love food so much that, it's just not. I love food, but at the end of the day, I just look at it. I sit back. I'm passionate about being dispassionate. Say it's just a means to an end. That's what gives me the discipline to do it. I just say, okay, I know I love food, but let me just take my mind out of this sort of euphoric vision of chowing down on chocolate and strawberries and cake or whatever, and just think, this is just fuel. It's a means to an end. If I do this, I'll achieve X result.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, so for me, the discipline comes mostly from a lack of sort of passion, I think, which is kind of weird. I know it sounds weird maybe to people, but it's the same reason why I just tend not to get very angry about too much. It's that's kind of the source of my discipline. I look at the bigger perspective, and yeah, it definitely can
Well,
give you discipline, but you need to have to be disciplined. You need to have a reason to be disciplined, if you know what I mean. And if everyone's reason is
right.
going to be different.
Right.
I was just
Right.
thinking when you were gone, actually, about Spetsnaz and how I do appreciate his work a great deal, but he's so different from me. He's someone who's just, I get the feeling, very disciplined, but also a very emotional person, sort of charged up. And he does really great work. I know directly with men. He's not even online very much. And there's no approach that's better, but I think I think it's just a really individual thing, just like MGTOW is as well. It's if you're going to fast, you need to find out what works for you to make you want to fast. And hell, if it's a religious reason, then why not? I mean,
Right. Right.
if you're some sort of weird vegan fanatic, fine. I mean, I'm not necessarily going to agree with the rest of it, but I mean, what are your experiences with it?
Well, my experience is okay. My experience with fasting, I've had great experiences with fasting, and like I can fast with the best of them. I mean, if I have to not eat for a week, no
You
problem.
sound a lot more proficient than I am. Like I said, I can do it, but I don't do it with pleasure, and I don't struggle in the sense that I don't do it, but it's not pleasant for me.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's never really pleasant.
Yeah.
My experience of fasting is this: it comes to a moment where you adjust your discipline to a point where not eating or drinking or whatever you're fasting from
Hmm.
becomes easier. Okay, there is a moment. There's a sort of what do you call it? A curve where you
Maybe a
kind of
second wind when you're running, something like that.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly, and then it does become a little bit easier. But to me, and even from a let's say a religious perspective, because I was introduced to fasting. from a religious perspective.
Hmm.
But I learned a hell of a lot more from the fasting itself than I did from the religion. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Um, what I learned was um, a moment of discipline where you take the things you take for granted, the things that are your basic needs and wants and desires of all the time,
Hmm.
and you feed them, and then for a moment in time, you 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 force yourself through sheer willpower. By the way, I mean sheer willpower to not take it in. Now, it's funny because the biggest benefit I learned from doing even just this Ramadan fast, which is only about it depends on where you are in the world, but about on an average 14 hours a day, right?
Hmm.
Every day for 30 days. Okay. So for 30 days, for about 14 to 16 hours a day, you don't eat, drink, nothing. You don't take anything in.
Hmm.
And I found that not it wasn't just the concept of not eating or drinking because you're fasting. You're fasting from water, you're fasting from food, you're fasting from any. If
I should offer a disclaimer. I don't do dry fast. I drink a lot of water. That I
Yeah,
don't eat, but I do drink water. So
yeah, yeah. So drinking, and that's part of the Ramadan fast is
yeah,
you don't drink,
I'm aware,
you don't
but
eat.
I
Yeah,
wouldn't if you're not religious, I wouldn't recommend a dry fast. I really wouldn't drink your water when you're fasting. It's very recommended. Yeah,
yeah. Well, see, but this is what I learned from this
yeah,
is is that you are forcing yourself through sheer willpower to commit to something that your body naturally needs. Okay.
yeah.
Now, and at that moment, now this is the thing. It's not about, oh, I can't eat, I can't drink for 14 hours in this day. But more than that was, for example, when I was in Canada, when I was in North America, and I was doing this fast, I would go out and during the fast, and I would go to a mall and I'd go to a bookstore, and I'd sit down, I'd pick out a book, and I'd read it, and I'd be sitting there reading a book and watching everybody around me eating and drinking and just consuming, right? But but for that period of time, I didn't consume anything, and I couldn't consume anything. And for that period of time, it wasn't so much of it had nothing to do with diet or losing weight or how much I'm going to benefit physically. But at that moment, it became a moment of discipline where I am not going to consume anything. I can't go up to the store. I can't buy a tea. I can't buy a coffee. I can't buy a candy bar. I can only sit here and read this book. And then that moment, it really kicked into my head like this is an act of true discipline.
Well, absolutely, especially a dry. Like I said, I've never done a dry fast. I wouldn't recommend it. I mean, I do it for health and well, just sort of scientific reasons, if you will. But I wouldn't recommend. But yeah, that's certainly myself. I find that my ability to concentrate on a fast tends to be diminished to the point where really heavy mental activity is pretty draining.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man.
But one thing it does, I mean, in terms of discipline, you do feel very separated from people when you're fast, especially after a few days. If I'm past
Oh
the
yeah.
second, especially the third day, and I'm
Oh
just
yeah.
walking around, I kind of feel almost disconnected from most human beings because they're doing something that is very natural, and I'm doing something that's at least strikes you initially as unnatural. But I don't see that as too dissimilar from my version, if you want to call it that. What was the monks of the MGTOW, that kind of thing of of just kind of reclining and stepping back from the rest of humanity and
Yeah.
just observing. I think it's it does give you discipline, but I think above all, it gives you clarity in the long run.
Well,
It's
I agree. I mean, does not discipline promote some kind of clarity, some kind of understanding? You know?
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. I think, well, if only because at those moments I feel pretty detached from everyone else. I am in some sense. Everyone else is eating all the time, and I'm walking past them, and sometimes I think, oh, it'd be nice to eat. Sometimes I just ignore it. Sometimes I don't think about it. But
Yeah,
it definitely, I mean, fasting as a concept has definitely made me, I think, more motivated. And from
I
motivation,
agree.
often discipline can follow.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely, man. I mean, it can definitely motivate you. I know this. I know this. It's funny because I live in a very religious country, and Ramadan's coming up in like 3 weeks.
yeah,
So every motherfucker here is going to be fasting 14 hours a day for 30 days in a row, right? But this is the thing. Um, the benefit of fasting does not come, at least in my opinion, does not come from a lack of caloric intake. It comes from a real mental discipline of
yeah.
controlling yourself and the environment around you. At least that's what I
I,
have.
I can certainly get that, and I think that's a benefit. Although for me, I just tend, for me, I do it just because there are well documented benefits, and for me, it's just about the calories and the nutrients. And I know that, for example, my white blood cells are going to regenerate. I mean, that's just but that's I'm weird like that. I don't really, I am disciplined, and it helps me with that. But my primary goal is definitely to approach it from perspective of how is this going to benefit my body? How can I balance
Right,
out the week's calories? It's not a very religious perspective on things, and it's
right.
pretty dry. But that's how I. But yeah, am I more disciplined for it? Sure.
Yeah,
You
well,
need.
you have to be,
Yeah, you
in my
can't.
opinion.
Yeah, I wouldn't, as I said, I would never intentionally do a dry fast with no water for several days. Well, I mean, for a
No,
day, I
you
guess.
can't. You can't. You can't. You
Well, you
gotta
could do. You can do it up to probably a couple, maybe 2, 3 days. On
maybe
the
two,
third,
3 days
yeah,
at the
the third day
most.
you would be suffering immensely. You would have some health related issues.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah,
drink water. Drinking
yeah,
water is a good thing.
yeah. But you should try a dry what do you call it, a dry fast?
Dry fast, yeah.
Yeah, try a dry fast for 14 hours.
Yeah, no, I've done that before, kind of unintentionally, where I just sort of forget to eat. I just don't
No,
really
but no
notice that.
water, nothing.
Yeah, no, I've gone 18 hours without any liquids, or it's not really pleasant with the lack of liquids. But I find the 14-hour thing not really a big deal at all. That's not. I mean, in particular, I had some guy comment on that video. I thought it was really funny. He said, if Muslims are fasting on these benefits, well, shouldn't they be in better health? But the reality is, in my observation, is that when they break the fast, they just pig out half the time,
Yeah,
and
of course they do,
they're
man.
not in a caloric deficit. They're not. They're just
Yeah.
okay. We're stopping the fast. Eat away. It kind of
The
in some sense, defeats
the
the purpose.
the benefits of the Ramadan fast has actually been studied a little bit, and I've
Okay.
read a little bit about it. It doesn't do any benefits as far as losing weight or something that you might consider to be a part of the goal of fasting.
Hmm.
The religious fast is not about that,
Right.
right? It's not about that. It doesn't really hold those benefits. A dry fast for, let's say, 14 hours a day, it doesn't really give you the physical benefits
No,
or
it's actually
that you.
damaging. You should be drinking water during that time.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's not about that. See, that's the whole point. It's not about
No,
that.
it's
It's
about devotion to the great Allah and your ability to be disciplined in His name.
well, no, you don't even have to be disciplined in anybody's name. It's
Well,
about
no, I know.
being disciplined to yourself.
Yeah, but
Uh,
people need different. What I was saying is people need different reasons. My reasons for being disciplined are just I need to look at this. I need to look at the numbers. I need to be, well, yeah, basically sciencey about it. Other
Yeah.
people have other reasons. They might have religious reasons, and who knows. But it's I think with fasting like anything else, it's you have to find what works for you. I think anyone can do it, but the reasons for doing it and the motivation and then the discipline, that
Yeah.
usually comes down to an individual thing. I think ultimately, just like MGTOW does, you're going to
Yeah.
get guys with different ranges of the emotional spectrum, guys that date, guys that don't date, guys that
Yeah.
are still pining away for the sacred virgin who's going to fly from the heavens and down from the heavens and save him and everything in between.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad I'm not there.
Well, it's something that's identifiable as a male trait. I mean, most men would never admit to that, but I think particularly at a younger age, that's this feeling. Now, where that ultimately comes from, I think we can just spend enormous amounts of time hypothesizing. And is it? I think probably it comes from almost a kind of expectation, given how rough the world tends to be towards men by way of comparison to women. That yeah, there's this hope that there's sort of a smooth edge out there
Yeah.
that'll help you I don't know, traverse the waves. But
Yeah.
it's now it's, as we discussed, it's pure insanity. It's just this idea just doesn't map onto reality. That's not how human men or human women work when they interact with each other.
No.
And
I'll tell you a funny story actually. When I first was introduced to fasting, I was a very young lad. I was like maybe 20 years old, man, many years ago. And I was introduced to it through Muslim people that I met in Canada. And I practiced it a couple times, and I thought, wow, I like this. I like this practice of fasting. It really it benefits me somehow, and I feel it. But I remember you have to within the Islamic religion, you don't have to fast from sex. You don't have to. It's not a part of the fast. You can have sex if you want to have sex. In fact, um, it depends on what Muslim you talk to. They'll give you different definitions of it, but overall, most Muslims will say, yeah, you can have sex. And I remember when I was a young lad, about 20, 21 years old, I was dating a girl, and I was practicing this fast. And at the time, I was not even a fucking Muslim. But I remember saying to her, all right, Ramadan's coming up. I'm going to do the 30-day fast. And for those 30 days, I'm not going to have sex at all. This is what I said to the girl I was dating. I said, I'm sorry, I'm going to fast from sex for 30 days. You know what she said to me? She said, fuck you.
well, without it, I mean, women obviously are desirous of sex too. There's no doubt about that. I think there's this. I think it was interesting part of that conversation between the Lord of British Columbia, John the Other, and Barbarossa. This idea of the bestowal of a gift. The woman is bestowing a gift upon the man. I mean, to varying degrees, of course. Women are desirous of sex as well, and I think that part of it is a consequence of I mean, we have this social construction that is a consequence of our biology. I mean, I think had we evolved differently, the way women interact with sex and sort of deal out sex, and it would just be very different. But I think in some sense in our society, in our culture, the idea of abstaining from sex is almost as I guess as insidious as not eating. What, you didn't
Yes,
eat for
man.
3 days? What, you haven't had sex in over a year? I don't travel in these circles anymore. But I mean, how often do you hear
Of
what
course,
some
man.
random problem to which the answer is inevitably, oh, you just need to get laid.
Yeah, yeah,
This will solve all your problems. I remember one time when I was having a combination of financial and education related problems years ago. And then I happened upon this fuck friend that I had this fling with for a couple of weeks, and the sex was pretty good. And I was still distraught and still having fun. It didn't solve anything at all. So now there went that myth. There was no solution to my problems at the time, and it
No solution through the sex. But
no.
I found it amusing. I mean, here I am, a young man, a young man, 20, 21 years old, trying to understand the world, say to my girlfriend, look, I don't want to fuck you for 30 days. Okay?
Well, I don't.
She would have none of it.
Yeah.
None of it.
Well, probably a combination of her desiring to have sex as well as you sort of denying her appeal. I think there are a
Yes.
few things. I mean, the reality is, despite what some feminists might claim, is that women realize that their primary asset to the world is their beautiful, youthful appearance. I mean, that's what gets them through life usually. There are
Yeah.
exceptions, but and denying that or denying a byproduct of that, the sex act is tantamount to saying, well, I don't recognize that, and it's just I don't acknowledge that. So I don't
It's like
know the individual case, but that probably had something to do with it.
it's like not recognizing them as a human being. It's
Well,
it's it's incredible, man.
I think in largest measure, I mean, men don't really have too much humanity, but to the extent that we do, it's through our deeds. As the late man-woman myth once said, and men are human doings and women are human beings. And the human being aspect of the female is her beauty and her youthful appearance, which is directly tied to her sexual marketplace value and how much she's desired. And if you don't
Yeah.
acknowledge that, you're basically saying, no, you're not a human. Just
Yeah.
like a man who's a bum who doesn't do anything, he's not a human either because he's got to be doing something. That's what you do as a man. Women need to look good and ideally, and if they don't, then they lose their value. And men don't do something that's acknowledged or of any sort of importance to most people. They're not
And
human.
you're nothing.
Yeah.
You're nothing.
So
You're a bum.
it's a different. I mean, this is why this idea that we can all just completely get along without any sort of problems, and there's just no real solution to it because we enter into the world with a completely different set of prerequisites that are just sort of thrust upon us, either because we're born with a dick or a vagina, and the, I, the it's just these problems that we face are in all likelihood, I think, insurmountable. I don't see some sort of solution. It's why, which I thought was really interesting in that conversation between the Lord of British Columbia and Barbarossa, that they both once called themselves MRAs. I've never used that term, as I just, from the get-go, I always thought, well, how is this going to even work? It just doesn't make any sense to me. I don't think,
Mm.
I mean, yes, men and women can get along on some level, but there will always be these fundamental differences. And the
Well,
problem that
you
are,
know what? You know what, man? What you're saying with men and and their responsibility or their roles. Um, I don't know. You like playing video games, right? Do you like comic books?
oh, I used to be a big aficionado. I stopped collecting when I don't know if you're into DC and Marvel, but in any
I
event,
am. I
okay,
am.
so you're familiar with the all the million different timelines and universes and multi. I just started to
Yes.
bore me, and I just it's every now that Wolverine dies for the fourth or fifth time, I begin to lose interest. However, really great cartoon series that came out in the early 2000s concerning the Justice League. It
Whoa,
was
which was that? Which one was that?
I'm trying to remember the name, but first off, they had the two amazing voice actors, the guy voicing Superman and the guy voicing Batman. Fuck me, I can't remember his name because he did the series as
I know who
well.
you're talking about. I
You know
know
the
who you're
Batman
talking
series
about.
from the
Yeah,
1990s.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
What's his
Yeah, I
name?
do.
Bruce something. No, that's Bruce Wayne. I'm confused.
No, no,
Matthew.
no.
I don't know. Anyway, I can't remember. But it was a really well done series. I mean, even though I'm not in the loop anymore because it's just so overwhelming, and there's a white lantern, a green, and there's so many different lanterns and
Yeah, yeah,
Marvel.
yeah. Me
Everything is
too, man.
just it's kind of. But yeah, it's just to put it briefly. I used to be into comic books. Yeah.
Okay, well, this is what I wanted to say is that there's this concept, within comic books and superheroes, where they say that you are born with the power, right?
Yeah.
There's three points to it. There's one is you're born with the power. Now I'm forgetting the second point, but the third point was power is thrust upon you. You have no choice. Life thrusts that power
I
upon
think
you.
that's the case with Spider-Man, right? I mean, the whole
Yeah,
story, he's bitten by the radioactive spider, and of course, he has initially, for those who are not familiar with the story, he uses his newfound power for sort of personal, selfish reasons. And in his negligence, his Uncle Ben dies, and then he's sort of rejoined to say, "Oh fuck, Uncle Ben told me, with great power comes great responsibility." And so it's almost like he's forced into the role. And I think that's the case with Superman as well, at least as long as he's in the presence of a yellow sun.
yeah. That's a big trope within superheroes.
Yeah.
Like the power is thrust upon you. You have no choice.
Not
You
the
have to.
case with Batman, mind you. Very different, but
Yeah, there are. Like I said, there's three. One is they're born with it. I think maybe the second is they develop it, like Batman, and then the third is it's thrust upon you. And I see men. I love comic books, man. I love the tropes. I love the comic books, but I see men as being the third concept where there's a power thrust upon you from the moment of birth, and you have to fucking deal with it, and nobody's gonna help you. You
well,
know?
I think, to be honest, I don't see it. I mean, it's completely different. It's a different kind of power, but because men and women have different roles and are perceived differently, I mean, a lot of women, there are, in fact, intelligent women out there that would prefer to be recognized for their deeds, and indeed, sometimes they are. But on the other hand, they're going to have to deal with the fact that the world, women will judge them because they're competing for in the beauty contest, and men will judge them based on their looks, and that's just
Right.
their reality. But I mean, they can't. Men, on the other hand, we have to deal with being a doer of deeds, and
Yeah. Yeah.
there's no way
Well,
past
that's
that.
that's that's the difference. Is women are born like I mean, going back to the comic book trope, women are born with the power. I mean, when they come out of the womb, they have it.
So they're effectively mutants in the Marvel sense, I guess.
Yes, yes, yes. They're like mutants. And you know what, man? What's his name? Sexy MGTOW actually touched on this concept when I interviewed him,
Lovely.
and he did. He was basically saying women are born with everything they need. Done, finished.
Well, I mean, true, but to be rational, if you are an ugly woman, you still will be treated reasonably well because you're a woman, but you're not going to reap the benefits you would have otherwise reaped had you been attractive. That's just a fact. I
Yeah,
mean,
but that's the same for men too, though.
yeah, but
But
I'm not denying. My point is that for men, yeah, it comes down to the doings. For women, they're born with it or they're not. I mean, the fact is, someone who's naturally inclined to being overweight has asymmetrical facial features as a female. I mean, she's going to be
ugly. Let's just say
low
it.
ugly,
She's ugly.
yes, low down on the SMV
Yeah.
uh, scale, and she's in all likelihood going to have to develop other skills that
Well, how many ugly women do you know personally? Like ugly women.
outright ugly. Well,
Yeah, like women that are ugly. You're just like, what the fuck? Like, come
I
on.
um I don't know. I mean, I don't have much traffic these days with women, but certainly I observe the streets, and
Or
there are a
in your
number of them.
life.
Yeah,
In your life.
they're not in my life, but there have been a number of them, and at some point in time, this was eons ago. This is one of my when I was 19 or 20. I had this ex-wife, and she put on a lot of weight, and I kind of lost sexual interest in her,
Okay.
and I told her that, and she got upset, and well, a lot of bullshit ensued, and whatever. But no, this is no, but certainly, though, in the sense that women are the limiting factor in reproduction, even if they're unattractive, they're always going to have an intrinsic value that a man will lack. I mean, as long as the man is not doing something with the exception of perhaps of the occasional, perfect model or something,
Yeah.
which is a very niche thing anyway for men, there's not
Yeah.
much going on. Whereas even an ugly woman in some sort of apocalyptic situation, she could still offer salvation by dint of her womb, right?
Yes, of course, man. I mean, I think back to, the women that I've known in my life, and I think, okay, how many ugly women did I really know? Like ugly women, women that when I looked at them, I'm like, oh God. There was a couple, but not many. I don't think that I really even the women that were less than attractive, let's say,
Mm.
um, they weren't so ugly that it turned me off.
Uh,
But but they're born with that. They have a pair of tits, right? Hanging in front of their chest. They got a pair of tits. They have a
well,
vagina.
the womb is the most important factor. I mean, without that's why we have these. If you look at prehistory, these different ratios of genetic contribution in favor of women. I mean, that's what the limiting factor in reproduction is. They
Yeah.
have
Yeah,
that
you're right.
going for them, and even the cases of a hideous woman, once again, one womb versus millions of possible sperm donors. It's why we have this society that we have, and why it essentially works this way. It's all a derivative ultimately of this very sort of clear and clean cut biological division. Sperm is cheap, wombs are expensive, and from that follows a whole bunch of other things.
Yeah. Oh God. Oh, absolutely, man. I mean, the well, you basically described gynocentrism. There you go,
Well,
everybody.
that's yeah. I mean, this is. I mean, there's some disagreement on this between, say, myself and the turd flinging simian, but I don't really see a division in things between the biological and social. I mean, I don't see at some point say, okay, this is social, but it all goes back to that. If we want to understand what gynocentrism is, why we are inclined as a society, as a species, to mollycoddle and take care of women, whereas men, by and large, tend to be invisible to far less visible. We just got to go back to that simple equation: sperm are cheap, vagina wombs are expensive, and they carry with them benefits and costs. To be a sperm carrier, a male, you need to do really important stuff because your sperm isn't worth a whole lot. To be a woman, to be valuable, you don't need a whole lot because
No.
you come equipped essentially with a bunch of diamonds. Whereas as a man, you're sort of it's just iron chunks or copper, if you will. It's
Yeah.
just it's really that's it all goes back to that. And then of course we can look at the social details and how that all works. But I think ultimately we can derive it from that, and it helps understand things a lot more clearly when we try to reduce things to the basic parts and principles. But that of course, understanding that isn't going to change necessarily with our ability to cope with it, but it can help in facilitating understanding. I mean, I know
Yes.
I don't like the status quo. I don't like the way the world is necessarily, but I can't change it. I mean, I'm not. In fact, I don't think any of us can.
Well,
We
maybe you've had a set of tits
and a
in a
vagina.
womb.
Well, but what I'm talking about is our the sort of the roles we're assigned due to our sort of random equipment, right? That we
Uh,
don't choose.
yeah.
This is, so rather than getting angry or whatever, I just accept it. I realize that, for most people, what I'm pretty invisible, because I don't, I wear really old clothing. I'm not going out to look pretty, and I don't wear anything expensive.
Yeah.
And I just kind of do my own thing, and I'm fine with that. If I were
That's
a
what I
woman, I'd
do.
have obviously a very different perspective on things. But the reality is that this is just the way the world runs, and there's no amount of caterwauling or complaining, or it's not going to change anytime soon, no matter how
No.
many MRAs there are, and even if every man on the planet, well, maybe that's an exception, but MGTOW can't change it. I think MGTOW is all about coping with the way human beings are, because we're not going to fundamentally change our nature. We can point out a million times. For example, I was talking with Teal Deer, right? We said, how many
Yeah.
times has the wage gap been debunked? I mean, we're exaggerating, what, a million? But it's been debunked so many times, people still are inclined to believe it. And
Yeah.
you could point out I mean, for example, prostate cancer mortality rates are similar, and if not higher in some cases than breast cancer, but allocation of funds, you can point
Yeah.
this out relentlessly. And you might even get some people to say, well, I guess you have a point there, but that's not going to change the framework that we're working with and the way society runs. We live in a gynocentric world for the reasons I cited. We got
Yeah.
someone born with a diamond and someone else born with a couple of cheap coppers. And you know,
Wow. You know what, man? I want to ask you this.
okay.
Do you think that I mean, how at what age do you believe that women understand their value?
Well, I'm on the fence as to whether or not some women understand it intrinsically, or it's something acquired, or in some cases, combination.
Hmm.
I think it's once again, it is socialized, but it's only socialized because this random anatomical feature that
Yeah.
they're born with, and so I certainly think fairly early on. I mean, there have been studies that I've read up on that show that even right out of the womb, female babies or human babies are treated in a different manner to male babies.
Yeah. Right.
Certainly growing up as a child, then certainly as a teenager. I think throughout their lives, they are imparted with a knowledge that they will be treated differently, and they're going to deal with life on different terms than do men. So I think that at some point in time, as an adult, though, they'll realize they're. I mean, I think on an intrinsic level as well. I mean, women know that their major contributing asset, at least as far as the interests of reproduction are concerned, is them looking good, basically. I mean,
Yeah.
I cite this again. It's becoming a bit tired, but my latest and last ex-wife, a couple of years back, ultimately, why did I get with her? Why was her German teacher at the time, and she I've always I like the physical features of East Asians, and she was Korean, and I had a relationship with that culture to some degree, and she was
Hmm.
11 years younger than I was, and I mean she was interested in me. I mean, it was purely physical, really.
Yeah.
There was no she's interesting. In fact, she used to try to fake being interested. Someone who never read or didn't read books, period. And I was reading a book about some fairly complicated topic, and she claimed she was interested. I mean, none of that played a role. It was purely physical, and I
Of
think
course.
women they recognize that. That's why women are so critical of each other when it comes to talking about things such as their physical features, the clothes they're wearing, the makeup, etc. I mean, they pay much more attention to it than men. Men just say, "Do they have a nice figure, a nice face? Okay, fuckable, whatever."
You know what? I think that concept hits women or girls at a much younger age than we would like to admit. As a teacher myself, I've seen it in middle school kids. I've seen it even before that, and I don't want to say that it's all cultural or it's all biological, but what I do want to say is that I know I've seen it so many times in front of my face. Young girls, and I'm talking between the ages of 5 and 10 years old. They already know what their value is.
Oh,
They,
certainly. I mean that value is assigned to them the minute it's discovered that they have a womb. I mean, a burgeoning womb, if as it were, as a young girl. That value is instantaneously bestowed upon them because they have a womb. It's where and so yeah, I was agreeing with you essentially before that. It's not doesn't happen when this happens essentially in the moment of birth, and everything that follows after that is going, that perception, the way they're treated is going to be based upon that.
Wow.
So there's no, and so it's trying to create a world where that's recognized. I mean, I think we can at least get some acknowledgement and recognition, but that's not going to change the fundamental dynamics. Look,
I
I
agree.
think it's most men. I mean, I'm not bragging. I'm just describing the kind of thing I do. This kind of total dispassionate indifference. That's not for most human beings, let alone most men, when it comes to women. And so, yeah, if 90% of the world or men were like me, I think people would start paying attention because no one would be chasing women, and they would all be
Yeah.
scratching their heads, and they might turn to angry lesbians. No, it's a bad joke, but yeah, that's why I just don't. I see my mission, if you want to call it that, more as just helping individual men understand themselves, helping them deal with their issues, trying to inform themselves about the way things are. Now, there is a different angle to this, and I think the source of disagreement comes from this idea that some people making this clear division between, yeah, this is cultural, this is biological, whereas I just see the whole big thing going back to this simple artifact of, you're born with a womb, you get certain prizes, you're not, you don't get certain prizes. If you look at it that way, and people call me negative or pessimistic, then yeah, you're gonna say, well, we can't change it, and no, I don't think we can. That doesn't mean you can't live a good life or you can't be happy, you can't do things that you enjoy. Fuck, the
Yeah.
weekend I spent almost nonstop playing The Witcher 3, and I was really, really enjoying it. I mean, my life, in embracing that what I believe ultimate truth, it helps me just facilitate and mold my life the way I want it to be. On the other hand, if you think, okay, well, yeah, that might be biological, but the projection of that is cultural and we can change it. And once again, you got to go back to the source. You cannot separate this cultural aspect from the biology. I made a video a while back. I'll keep on referencing it. Society is what we are. Society can only be what we evolve to be. And in the case of the sexual dimorphism between men and women, frankly speaking, it's going to be what it's going to be because women have the womb and men have really cheap and insignificant sperm. Trying to change that from the ground up is just a project that will be ultimately resolved in lost energy and a waste of time. However, what I am optimistic about is individual men just choosing to pursue what they're interested in, doing their own thing, and just not giving a fuck. I mean, that's something that's eminently doable. I do it, you do it. Lots of people do it now. That's what going your own way is all about. But changing the world and being an MRA and stuff, it's a waste of time. And I think anyone who's rational actually looks at the way the world works and the sexes interact will have to acknowledge that as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, call me a pessimist in one respect. I think I'm reasonably optimistic in another way. I mean, the fundamental message is, do your own thing, and you can do your own thing without having to worry if I think. Oh, sorry, I keep on running my mouth off, and I'm being rude.
No, you know what, man? It's funny because when you're talking about that, you know what I keep coming back to in my mind is, in a sense, you're fasting from something.
Yeah,
You're
I
you're
guess.
fasting from what is expected of you.
Yeah, only it's much more survivable than physical food fasting. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
after five
exactly.
days, I'm pretty wiped, I have to say. But I think
But this you can survive.
yeah, no, it's prolonged, and I think that's why, in some sense, I find myself so detached from the rest of human beings. Take what you will from that statement, but it is a kind of prolonged fast, and it's a good way of describing it. 'Cause I don't really feel I can relate to most human desires anymore because I've sort of given them up, and
You're a fucking superhero, man.
I'm
Yes,
not a
you are.
superhero at all.
we,
I,
we if we define we're
no.
talking comics, right?
Well,
That's
I
that isn't that is the archetype of a superhero,
I
man.
don't know, man. Without the power levels, the Watcher. I don't know. The
I know
Watcher.
the Watcher. What are you
I maybe
talking about? Of course I
I
know.
can kind of relate to that, but no, I'm not a superhero. It's just I'm not really part of. I feel kind of detached from humanity, to be honest. A lot of the things that seem to drive people, which tend to be very emotional and sort of passion driven, I can't relate to. It's not that I'm not motivated to do things. I'm very motivated to do a number of things, like make videos, play video games,
Uh-huh.
read up on topics that interest me. But the source isn't this sort of this ardent passion. I got to do it. And when I look at people in say a cafe or a restaurant, I just I can't even vaguely relate to the kinds of activities, and I think it's because I've been on a fast now for years from all the conventional interactions.
You have.
I understand it because I feel like I'm kind of observing. I'm like the watcher. I'm looking at it from an outside perspective. And I'm saying these are what these kinds of people do. I get it. I understand it, but I can't really relate to it and I'm perfectly fine with that. It's not that
I think his name was Uatu.
Uatu. Well, he was the Milky Way watcher. That's right, Uatu.
That's right. He was watching the Earth,
Yeah, he
man.
was watching the Earth. Yeah, and I kind of see. I'm not quite as attached as he is. I want to take an interactive role to some degree. I mean, make videos and help
Yeah.
people understand things and just kind of become, I guess, more comfortable with themselves. I think
Yeah.
for a lot of reaching a point where you actually, generally speaking, stop caring about what people think is tough. I mean, for one thing, they're pragmatic reasons. These days, between my channel and me doing mostly sort of editorial work online, I'm working kind of like 95% at home. So, in some sense, I'm kind of my own boss. I'm not making a lot by any means, but still. On the other hand, if you work in an office, I mean, I used to work in an office, or you work in a classroom, I mean, it's hard just not to give a fuck what other people think because then your job might hinge on,
Yeah.
on what other
Yeah.
people think. In fact, back in the days when I was a translator in an office with these awful Harridans, they would complain about salads I made with onions in them, and this seemed to be some sort of defending the fucking onions, all kinds of little bits of nonsense. And so, I mean, it's I have to admit, in my position, it's not that difficult just not to give a fuck. But if you're in a situation, let's say you're divorced, you have children, you have to deal with legal authorities. I mean, it's not it's more complicated. So it's not as clear cut, but I think ultimately we should all, in going our own way, move towards that point of simply not giving a fuck. I mean, I'm one thing I'm really happy about with my channel is I know it's not the biggest channel. It's just that I'm able to produce content that's interesting to me, and it seems, for the most part, interesting to a lot of people who are my
It
subs, at least as
is.
well. And I'm not doing the pandering, I'm not doing the explicit marketing thing. It's just me talking, and I find that absolutely fascinating. For me, that's been the most exhilarating thing I've done my entire life, and that's why I want to keep on doing it.
Yeah.
And but yeah, it really varies. But I think we should all be striving to this, just not give a fuck, because our recognition, our acknowledgement as men, it's all just you got to do stuff. And
Yeah.
sure, we're still doing stuff in the community, if you will, but it doesn't matter whether or not other people recognize that. If people that I know in real life,
Yes.
that
It's
that's
not.
just
It's not about. Look, it's not about doing stuff for someone else. You're doing stuff for yourself.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah, and I'll tell you something. You yourself, as the Thinking Ape and Stardust, and other content providers on your level, that is what gave you success. Okay.
I hope so. I mean, I don't
No,
know,
it
but
did. It did. It did. Trust me, it did. I mean, everybody knows that. Everybody listening knows that. They all know that because they don't come around. They don't come into your corners and go, how can you entertain me?
yeah. Well, I'm
Entertain me
not.
now.
I mean, there's this thing. Well, I mean, that's an interesting concept. I mean, I know you teach. I don't know how it is in Indonesia, but I've taught in different European countries, in South Korea, as well as in the United States, as well as briefly in the UK. And there's this concept, and I'm sure you've heard of it, edutainment, right? I mean that.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
I've
that's
heard
that's what it is. I mean, it's even with adults. I've taught little kids, which I hated, and taught middle school children, high school, which seem to be most tolerable, and adults, is that, you know, if it's educational, it's got to be somehow entertaining at the same time. And I'm not saying it's not possible, but for me, say making a video, I guess the most important thing is, you know, is it educational? Are people going to learn something from it? I'm not thinking, oh, I know, I know all the heard about the marketing technique. You know, is this image going to attract people? You know, is this kind of
Yeah.
intonation of my voice? No, I mean, it's that I'm old school. I think learning by itself can be fun and enjoyable without, you know, adding spices onto it, if you will, and trying to because sometimes you can lose the message, and you can actually lose some of the good quality because it's just so filtered through all kinds of edutainment, if you will,
Yes. Yes.
tools. I mean, that's one thing I mean, I might have to go back to it, but I fucking hated teaching because of that, because I couldn't relate to the demands that were put on me. That I had to, instead of, I mean, I was someone. I'll just say it flat out. I was very good at explaining things to the students. I taught a range of subjects, but mostly it was English as a foreign language and some others. I mean, I know my grammar like the back of my hand. I could explain every situation to them. But none of that, and if they had problems, they could come to me. But no, there was never enough. No, you had to make it entertaining too.
No, you had to be a clown.
Exactly. Oh well, especially in a place like South Korea. I mean, talk about being a
Oh,
clown.
Jesus.
You're there's kind of this the white Westerner is the oddity, but I'm happy at least in that culture. You know, I wasn't black, man. I knew black people that they actually
Oh,
left their
God.
jobs because it's so well, at least at the time things have changed, but back in the mid 2000s when I was there, it was still pretty fucking
It's not much
conservative.
different now, man. It's not much different now.
Yeah, yeah. So I
Trust me.
mean, that's why I don't want to go back to teaching because I know it inevitably goes back to that. And the beauty of my channel for me and why I take a lot of joy and pleasure in it is that I don't need to be entertaining to get people interested. And it might not be the whole of the earth, but I'm not trying to get the whole of the earth interested. I'm just trying to get some people interested. So I'm completely pleased and happy with that.
Yeah. Well, I think you should be proud of that. I mean, the content itself.
I'm not really particularly prideful. I mean, despite what people claim, I'm not. I don't think you know, everyone has a right to say what they want. But I mean, I'm not. I've debunked this idea that I was somehow envious of Sandman. No, my criticisms
Yeah, that's
were
bullshit.
were legitimate, I think. But no, I mean, I just kind of enjoy what I'm doing with the channel, and I just enjoy the variety of topics I can explore because I've always been someone who's been interested in a lot of different things. That's why I make videos with say nutrition. Because I'm not just interested in MGTOW. I mean, at the end of the day, MGTOW is doing what you want, and if that means talking about other topics like English or fasting or whatever, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
And
Don't
people,
don't don't stop because I swear to God, I mean, you the content you put out is valuable. Okay, I'm saying this as a person that came into the community through you and through others, but don't stop because um, you don't have to be a clown, man. You don't have
I
to
know, but
be.
that's exactly my point, man. That is the beauty I find of YouTube. Yeah, you can be a clown and you can be quote unquote more successful.
Yeah.
You can be just play the entertainment game. You know, you heard of a guy named Vsauce? I saw some clip about him saying how, you know, the still image that you look at in the video is critically important. And I mean, it's one thing I guess I've communicated to my subs before, and you're a teacher, so you're an edutainer anyway. You know,
Yeah.
it's that I hate fucking fakery, and whether it's in the professional world dealing with people, what I love about YouTube, at least potentially, is you don't have to fucking be a fake. You can
Yeah.
be. Look, there's nothing about Stardust that I present to you that is fake. I mean, obviously, I'm you know, I'm not showing my face all the time. You already saw what I look like. But my point is, everything I'm telling you comes from the mind and the heart. I'm not offering an image. I'm not fucking screwing with my voice to give you a different version of the way I talk. It's just me talking to you guys. And ultimately, I think, yeah, that's what I enjoy doing. It's something I could never fucking do either as a professional working in office or a person teaching adults or children because there's always that fake element. and
Yeah.
people thrive off of it. But I'm just very pleased that I discovered a community on YouTube that appreciates the no bullshit, no fake approach, and say, here I am, here's what I have to say, and I
Yeah.
get people that disagree with me all the time, but at least they're willing to listen. So
Yeah. No, that's the beauty of it in itself, man. Definitely. I mean, you know, I'm kind of I'm one of those guys that I love disagreement to a certain extent.
oh yeah, it's important. I mean, this is this was the big thing when a couple of months back when I offered some major criticism of Sandman is that people just came in saying, no, we just need to get along. Apart from the professional envy thing, which was debunked, you just got to get along. So, no. I mean, that's essentially that's what feminists want, and a lot of women want. They just just
Yeah.
get along. I don't think we should just agree for the sake of agreeing. And if disagreement is legitimate, then we can have a discussion. I just put out a little video today. Some guy on my video when I was talking about the limits of sanitary conversation, he made this comment talking about how things like blasphemy laws and basically parochialism was a good thing, and I just thought I disagreed, so I made a video about it. It's that's what we need to do. We need to disagree sometimes and discuss things, and sometimes it's not a clear case of what's right and wrong, and sometimes it is.
Yeah.
And sometimes
Yeah.
disagreements will stay. I mean, I am until I see evidence to the contrary. This idea that, for example, culture is somehow distinguishable from biology, I'm never going to buy into it until I've seen the evidence, and I don't see any.
Yeah.
So this is an
Yeah.
example. But yeah, we need to disagree. We need to discuss things. That's how we all grow as individuals, and that's how we learn about the world. We can't not do that. And
Well, I'll tell you something, man. The community that is sort of God, what's the word? It's building off of what you started, as well as Barbarossa, and a lot of these other guys. The community itself is really trying. This is what I love about it the most. It is in a constant flux of trying to understand. Okay, there's never a moment where it's all static. There's never a static moment
well, I
in this
think,
community.
sorry, I think contrary to what some people claim, about it's not an echo chamber, and I would never want it to be. I don't want just. I mean, that's just first off, it's boring. Second off, we're not going to get any further if we're just always agreeing. A lot of people. I mean, there's a silly meme going on that's been going on for years now. That MGTOW is sort of the male version of feminism, and yet
Yeah, I've heard
we
that
have
shit.
disagreements. We talk them out. Sometimes we have major disputes. We're not that. We're not just agreeing with each other,
Yeah,
and frankly speaking, the difference is I'm not just gonna support some guy just because he's a cock and balls. I've said this before.
yeah,
I'll support you if your reasoning is good, if you have good arguments, and that's the primary thing for me. And I think that's so essential to the MGTOW online community, at least,
yeah,
because the minute we go back into the sort of the feminist mindset is, oh, I have vagina. Let's just support each other.
yeah,
We will end up with an echo chamber, and I think one of the worst things we can do is just end up with just incorrect information,
yeah,
and we're trying to understand the world in all different ways, and the way to do that is to discuss and to be open to new ideas. I mean, one thing people might not believe me. I mean, if someone were to present evidence to me today that all my views have been incorrect and it's a mountain of evidence, I'd have to change. And I think it's important we do that. And that is what distinguishes us from, say, feminists. It's
yes. It,
people
it
with the
does.
wrong
It
idea.
distinguishes us, man. And but the funny thing is a lot of people on the outside they don't see it, and
Because they
I
don't
come.
they don't take the time to look at a 2 hour video, maybe,
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. They don't take the time to actually look at what's being said. But the point is that we as a community we distinguish ourselves with a name. We give ourselves a name. We give ourselves a title. We say we are MGTOW. This is who we are. But most people apply that to this very narrow-minded concept of an identity.
Sound bites, man. People work off of
Yes.
sound bites. It's why, Sandman, for example, has a carefully crafted time limit on his videos. It's why some people have set it to 5 minutes. I mean, people have limited attention spans and limited and are keying on sound bites.
Yeah.
And to them, MGTOW is a soundbite, and they'll just say, "Oh, he hates women, can't get laid," or maybe loser in the basement. Those are the most extreme ones. Maybe it's
Yeah.
just guy does his own thing. I mean, who knows? But
Yeah.
most people aren't going to take the time to actually listen to everything we have to say. I mean, even in the case, I look at my own videos. Some of the videos I'm most pleased with have been long, well-researched, scripted videos that went well over an hour, and I don't have a particularly high view count on that. So, people that's how humans usually work.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not like that. I mean, if I see a video that's interesting, I'm just gonna dive into it.
Yeah.
But on the benefit of that is I really, for the most part, immune to these sort of attacks from, I'm not going to say immune, but feminists really just don't deal with me very much. First off, they get confused. Or, hey, what, he made a video about nutrition? What the hell is this MGTOW stuff, So they get confused, and they just don't really spend a whole lot of time with me. But
Feminist confusion. Well, feminists are always confused, man.
yeah, they are. But I leave it to other people to kind of deal with feminists directly. I think I've changed my mind. I think it's important to kind of deal with it. But I think if I exclusively made sort of, I call them FFFs, feminist first responder videos,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I'd get bored out of my mind. I wouldn't want to do it anymore, because then you get pigeonholed into doing something,
Yeah.
and that's all you can do. I mean, I'll give you an example. Sargon of Akkad, right? He's got a pretty big channel now. He's an FFF, feminist first responder,
Yeah.
and he decided to do the secondary channel where he sort of reads off ancient poetry or something. It's tiny. It's probably never going to grow. Why? Because he got pigeonholed into the FFF role. That's what he's going to do, and that's
Yeah.
what he's going to talk about. And I guess for some people that's okay, but for me, I just want the flexibility to talk about different
Yeah.
topics.
Whatever you want. Talk
Yeah,
about
yeah. I
whatever.
mean, within
Yeah.
reason. I'm not going to talk about things I don't know about. I mean, someone asked me to make a video, say, "Well, can you talk about chemical engineering?" I don't really know a lot about that. I'd leave that to
Yeah. Right.
Barbarossa.
Right.
But things that I'm interested in, things that I'm knowledgeable of, sure, I'll talk about that. And that might not be the ticket to conventional success, but I don't care. It's
Yeah.
as long as I'm happy doing it. Feminists don't do that. They talk about the same things over again. And frankly speaking, the FFFs tend to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Even I was with Teal Deer, and we talked in private, and he was saying how he'd like to kind of break out of the FFF role and talk about other issues sometimes, but
You can.
I think he feels less constrained than some people because it's not a source of money to him. But I mean, you kind of become accustomed in a role, right? And even in the case of, I think what Sandman was mentioning in that interview you did with him, he said, well, people are constantly asking me, why don't I just use my normal voice, right? And
Yeah.
I said,
Yeah.
well, he claimed that wouldn't be appealing, but it's also because that's what people have gotten used to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Oh yeah, man. I've heard that. I've heard that from other content providers, from other people that I talk to regularly. Like, I've already started this, so I kind of have to keep up with it, and I have to keep doing this.
well,
So,
you get, if you pursue a certain genre, if you will, and you become moderately successful, particularly in YouTube, it doesn't matter what it is, you do get pigeonholed. I mean, there, I have this gaming channel which is half the size of my MGTOW channel. It's
you have
small,
a
and
gaming channel?
you left a comment, man. You left a comment on my channel. I
I
said
know.
I'm The
I saw
Witcher.
the video. I saw the video.
Like, well, where did that come from? Yeah, I have at the moment, I think last time 5,555. What a strange number.
Wicked,
Subs.
man. Okay, I'm gonna
I
subscribe
don't
to that.
really. I mean, I don't do a whole lot with it right now, just because there are a lot of reasons. Gaming's pretty oversaturated. I'm concentrating on The Witcher privately, and frankly speaking, my MGTOW channel is more important to me because it's
You
also a
should do
source of
some. You
income.
should do some Witcher.
I plan on doing some Witcher stuff. I want to first actually get through the game. I encountered, unfortunately, my first major bug, but that said, I'm still Very impressed with the
Are you
game.
playing on the PC or PC, right?
You don't know I'm a console racist. Of course I play on PC.
Okay,
That said, I
okay.
do play on a gaming laptop, which I know is inferior. But everyone's always asking me, everyone's like, why don't I get a just a regular thing? I guess it just comes down to personal comfort. I know gaming laptops are more expensive, but for example, I can do work when I'm editing shit on my
Yeah.
fucking couch. I can't do it. I can't. I can usually also talk to people, at least off the record, on my couch. I need to have my proper mic when I'm talking to you now, but it's just convenient. But yeah, I would never play on console. I didn't. Last console experience I had was with 86, 88, maybe 89 at the latest. I
Yeah,
so
I usually play on my laptop, but I do have an Xbox because I
Well,
have a
there's
kid.
nothing. I mean, all joking aside, you want to play on console, it's fine. There's just so many more options, particularly for Skyrim. I mean, for those of you who don't know, I probably have maybe the Skyrim hours played record in the entire world, possibly. Should I tell you, close to 4,000 hours?
Wicked,
But
wicked, man.
that would not have been possible without mods, which are only possible on PC. So, but in any
Yeah,
event, yeah, the gaming channel, I have that as well. And I was saying, that, there's only so much you can do with that. I mean, gaming is gaming. I try to offer a different perspective, and some people respect the fact that I offer what they might term, sort of slow down, intelligent commentary. The gaming thing, for example, is all about the gimmicks, and it's, hey
oh
guys,
yeah.
PewDiePie, check it out, things like that.
Yeah,
I mean,
man. Yeah,
it's not that I can't do that stuff. I would, but I had to do that stuff when I was teaching sometimes, and it just kind of drove me crazy. But yeah, you get to kind of pigeon. I've seen Barbarossa try in the past. This was eons ago. He's since given up, and I understand why. He has a background in chemistry and engineering, and try to do videos on that. I think he should. I don't. I'd like to learn more about it if he did some introductory. I'm not that familiar with it. But that stuff tends to not get all that many views. And when I talk
yeah.
about
People don't want to see that.
do nutrition videos or language stuff, it tends to get fewer views as well. And it's just, you know, that's just the nature of the beast. But if you think it's important, then I think you should cover it. I mean, I'm for those of you who don't know, I do at some point in time. I got a lot on my plate. Have planned a video talking about some of the politics of Indonesia with Ayam and what happened with the
Yeah,
American
we gotta talk.
interventions.
We gotta
Let's
do
not
that.
do
We
it
gotta do.
now. That should be a
No, not
separate.
now, not now. But
Yeah,
we will do that. We will do that.
yeah.
That's a
So I
good
mean,
idea.
because that's interesting as well. I mean, you get firsthand experience. So it's just you have to make a choice, right? You can either just do what people have always expected of you. I mean, it's funny in some ways. A guy like Sandman is a slave to his subs. He has to
Yeah.
kowtow to what they've come to expect. If he breaks from character, he's gonna lose his momentum. People are gonna be less interesting. Whereas,
You know what I called him? The dear. What do you call it? Dear Dottie. Dear.
dear,
You know, dear. What
dear
do you call
Abby,
it?
I don't
Dear
know.
Abby. He's the
Right.
Dear Abby. He's the Dear Abby of MGTOW.
Yeah,
That's what he
some
is.
guy, talk about high heels. Okay, we'll talk about black pickup trucks. Okay, we'll talk about that. Talk
Yeah, man.
whatever.
Like you write in a response like, "My husband today said this. Can
Right.
you explain it to
Now,
me?"
it's true that it gets him nominal success, but once again, he is unfortunately in some sense a slave to his sub's will, and he says this. I mean, he serves.
Yeah,
He's a
he
man of the
knows.
people.
Yeah.
I mean, you can help people whilst not selling your metaphorical soul. I think, and that's ideally what I'd like to do, and I'm pleased to do it. I've never had anything I've done previously that's given me quite as much pleasure as running the channel, and it's just incredibly flexible. Things, when I was a translator, I had to fucking translate the backs of fucking paint cans as a text. That's fucking boring. And the editorial stuff I do to this day, it's just usually business contracts, formatting. It's not fun.
He's translating
Yeah,
paint
but
cans.
see, this is the big myth. I mean, people think translation is some sort of glorious whatever, translating War and Peace. Nope.
No, it's not. It's not.
90, I forgot what the stats are. It's upwards of 95% of all translation is non-literary, meaning you're going to be translating industrial product instructions, paint cans, whatever. shit like that. I mean, the most interesting translation work I did was actually when I was studying it and doing a master's degree, because I was actually able to cover a scientific topic. But most of it's boring, and the stuff I do these days is related to translation, editorial, editing stuff, proofreading, and it's mostly just it's boring as fucking shit. Formatting
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah,
grammar,
yeah,
spelling. It's not fun usually. So it's just kind of an unparalleled flexibility if you don't allow yourself to be, pigeonholed into something that the YouTube format offers you. And I think
yeah,
MGTOW is the perfect means to it. I mean, if you don't take a narrow view of MGTOW as this sort of, okay, we don't get, it's don't get married. If that's all that is,
we're
then don't
getting attacked. We're getting attacked on different levels, man. These days,
by
I,
by.
I look what just happened with fucking Roosh V.
Yeah, but see, I guess, I mean, I'm pretty devoted to I just don't give, I mean, Roosh V says something, no, well, it doesn't affect me, man. I still do my own thing. So
Yeah,
none of what anyone out there has to say, generally speaking, has effect. I mean, people who are detractors of MGTOW,
yeah,
it's just kind of irrelevant to me because I just do my own thing. I mean,
yeah,
this is sort of the battle for the red pill. That's what we just talked about, right? The red
yeah,
pill is fucking meaningless now, more or less. It means 10 different things. I can't figure out
yeah.
what. So if Roosh,
Do you get a lot of trolls? Do you get trolls?
uh, not really all too many. I can tell you a really funny private message I got though,
Yeah, yeah.
a couple of
Okay.
days ago. I just have to look it up. It was actually hysterical. Actually, it was because it just I do get this sort of thing. I don't even know what he's talking about, and I just kind of think, well, okay, cool. What did this dude say? He wrote me a message and said, "You're a pseudo intellectual fucktard. If you don't have the balls to pick up a weapon and kill the people who are oppressing you, capitalize, shut the fuck up." I get stuff like that sometimes, but usually no, I don't. I don't. See, the problem is trolls usually don't sit through long videos,
Yeah,
and
they go away eventually. They do.
yeah, yeah, it's
They just kind of like they come up and they make their appearance known, and then if you ignore them long enough, they just kind of go away.
yeah. I guess. I mean, I don't. I don't. I let trolls troll. I mean,
Yeah,
contrary to what people believe, there's only one exception. I don't delete comments. There's one exception. I mean, occasionally I'll get some, frankly, crazy people saying, we need to fucking run around and, rape and then cut up women. I actually respect, people should be able to say that. But the
yeah.
problem is YouTube, it's really PC. If I get shit like that on my channel written down, who knows? So that's one thing I will delete. But barring super violent shit like that, I mean, you can troll, you can say whatever the fuck you want. I get all kinds of strange comments, but I
Oh,
think
you
Barbarossa
must.
mentioned I don't really interact too much unless I think a comment's really interesting or what have you. So it's just I just kind
Yeah,
of just do my own thing.
I've had fucking I've had people mimic my avatar and and
Yeah,
and say like
try longer,
I've
less
been called
accessible videos, man.
I've been called a pedophile.
Really?
That's one. Yeah, pedophile, a rapist by
I don't.
trolls who have mimicked my old avatar because I changed it. It used to be gone fisting. Now I just put the cock up, right? There's my avatar. But I've had people actually mimic the avatar and change the name slightly and then come on and call me a pedophile and a rapist.
Yeah, well, you know what, man? It sounds arrogant, and I would, if I were in your shoes, I'd take the same. These people are just beneath me. They're not even worthy of my attention. I just ignore.
Yeah,
I'm doing
man.
my own thing. You want to say some silly shit and spank off to it because it gets you off. You go ahead. I'll keep on making videos that are interesting that you probably didn't even watch to begin with.
Yeah,
I just
man.
don't pay attention to shit like that. I don't pay attention to Roosh. I mean, for example, I didn't watch it. You know the pigtail thing that Paul Elam went on
Yeah.
some rant.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
never
yeah.
even watched that video because, frankly speaking, he's beneath my attention too. I don't pay attention to that idiot. I
Yeah.
mean, I just do my own thing. I watch the videos that are interested in me, and you know, and for the most part, I'm just left to my own devices. I mean, I'm not really on the. I don't interact with feminists because for me, it's a waste of time. And my suggestion is, you get people like that, just ignore them and keep on doing your own thing, man. There's nothing else.
Yeah,
I
well,
mean,
that's what I've done.
yeah.
But the funny thing is like what you just said is, you're still around, man. People are still watching and listening to what you have to say. Look at Paul Elam.
Well, you know, I mean, I don't really have anything positive to say about the guy, but the guy was a politician to begin with. I mean, he what this was a while, years ago now, and it's been a long time. We're getting old, but he I made this video that I think is still accurate to this day, that men aren't going to change, and I think a majority of men, nope, they're not going to change. So, right? And
Hmm.
he wrote this article, penned this article on whatever, and he got a big ass fucking backlash from the MGTOW community, and then he apologized, and he was always just politicking and playing one side or the other. I mean, I guess initially I was
It's
confused.
so funny. These guys, man, these guys that cry independence, with their movements, they're just a bunch of goddamn crybabies.
Well, I mean, honestly, the AVF, I don't know anything about them anymore. I don't pay attention because I sound arrogant again. I don't care. They're beneath me. I'm just doing my own thing.
Hmm.
And that's my recommendation to every MGTOW channel out there, big or small. Just keep on doing your own thing. It doesn't mean that if someone offers criticism, you shouldn't respond. But I mean, AVFM, nobody takes that seriously anymore except themselves,
No,
maybe.
that's what I'm
Um,
saying, man.
it's not a
Like, who's
valuable source
taking
of
those motherfuckers
information. They have a
seriously?
specific agenda apart from, just exploring the world and gaining knowledge. So I don't know,
Yeah, man.
especially Elam, man. Like I said, the guy is beneath me. I don't pay attention to anything he has to say. I didn't watch that video about me. It's just a waste of time. I'd rather spend 20 minutes taking a fucking dump and wiping my ass than watch that shit, frankly speaking. A lot more productive. So,
Yeah.
yeah, you gotta. I think it's just over time. You kind of know what you should be paying attention to and what not. Some criticisms are just, for example, the whole you're a loser, can't get laid, whatever. This doesn't even warrant a response anymore.
Yeah.
This is like kindergarten stuff, right? And so you don't address stuff like that. But but to be fair, if someone offers a legitimate criticism, I thought this variant of this comment that I heard, how the reason. Actually, let me just people will watch the video anyway, but
If you
if
got it,
yeah, I uploaded it a little bit earlier today, but let me just read
here,
off
hold on.
the comment I got from this
Okay,
guy that actually.
give me one second. I'll be right back. Just give me 1 second,
Okay,
okay?
1 second, one.
Or like
Okay,
15 seconds.
okay, go for it.
Hello.
Yep. Wow,
Okay,
that was
I'm back.
fast.
I'm
I
back.
was
That was
surprised.
fast,
Okay.
right?
So this
Okay.
guy on this comment, I made this video about this encounter I had on a TeamSpeak server where we're talking about male
Mhm.
circumcision, which is a topic for a separate occasion. But and he says, please cite the civilization that has risen to a dominant position without significant social and religious pressure. Sure, we can find a few in their decline period, but I don't know of one that has risen with the free and open model. Intuitively, seems like it would be better. Blah 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 blah. Why is it that free-thinking knowledge lovers always seek to hijack society that has relied upon concepts like outcasting and blasphemy, blah blah blah? Now, his point was basically what I was talking about, this parochial thing. Let's parochialism and hush hush. This is how we sort of get past things. And I thought this is a comment. I don't think it was an accurate comment, but I'd actually I made a video response to it, and basically to summarize, all the things that actually mark what we know as civilization, they have nothing to do with, say, blasphemy laws, the modern comforts, technology, nothing to do with that. And if anything, it has to do with open discussion of ideas and developing them. So,
Right.
but when someone says something like "you're a loser, can't get laid," and I haven't heard that in ages. Like I said, I think most people just don't have the time or inclination to pour through my videos. Uh, I just ignore it. It's just not. That's kindergarten stuff at this level, man. We've been doing this for years now, and that's just we just don't pay attention to stuff like that. Why should we? I think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Uh,
There's no point. It doesn't do you
yeah,
any favors.
it's like spending time addressing some sort of Nawalt thing. It's
Mhm.
just this is just thing. These are things that have been addressed a dozen times already, and we need to move past that eventually.
It's
And
like it's like grade 5 math,
yeah,
and
it's
you,
not
you
not
want to
even. It's like
graduate.
basic addition. I mean,
Yeah.
we're moving way beyond that. We're doing multivariable calculus here, and we don't have time for fucking basic addition. There's nothing wrong with that, but there are other places where you can learn basic addition. So
Yeah, exactly.
let's move on with the more advanced concepts. And I think there are many different approaches doing them. What I really enjoyed, actually, my favorite discussion that Barbarossa had was the guy with the Indian chap, the one with the Indian
Yeah,
chap,
that was
the
fucking
caste system. Because
cool,
I was
man.
already familiar with the Brahmin caste system, just because it's something that I've studied a little bit, and how that manifested itself in relation to men and women and what have you. Thought that was
Mhm.
absolutely fascinating, and we need
That was a
more.
that was an amazing talk, actually.
Yeah, yeah, no, I thought so as well. I mean, it was just very fresh and just a different perspective on things. And yeah, it's fascinating just to just hear something different. And I think we need more of that.
Yeah.
And I think and so Barbaros is definitely taking his channel in a really good direction, doing that, and just moving rapidly away from dealing with shit that he dealt with, frankly speaking, years ago when he was the only one, the Nawalt stuff. I mean, this is all said and done.
To
And
him, it's like, what?
yeah, I
What are you saying?
mean, I don't, I had a time when I dealt with some of it or try to address it, but why bother? There's no point. They're more important, more interesting things
Yeah.
that I'd like to talk about. I have a number of projects planned. I mean, I have a talk with you. I don't want to spoil the details. I want to try to get in touch with a professor or an academic whose book I've been reading. Maybe I can even get a talk with him if I'm lucky. And yeah, I got
Nice.
a lot of stuff planned that really just has nothing to do with this really basic shit. So in spite of what
Well, we,
people,
we, we gotta do the Sukarno talk,
yeah,
man.
we will do all in
I've
due
been
time.
preparing
I've
for it.
got
I'm
a
pre
lot of okay. Yeah,
uh,
I mean I'm pretty familiar with the with recent Indonesian history. Well, at least with his 30-year reign. I do need
yeah,
to touch up on.
32,
Sorry,
32.
32. Yeah, sorry, I was a little off there. But definitely, well, I have a million other things I need to do, and plus, I need to finish The Witcher, which I want to kind of do a complete review on. First,
Well, do that first. Do
yeah.
The Witcher first.
For
Do the
anyone who
fucking
doesn't
Witcher
know, who's
first.
not on my gaming channel, I did encounter a major game stopping bug, as in I couldn't progress with a quest. I'm sure they're going to address this, but if you haven't watched my video, I'll just summarize it. I'm someone who's pretty much a hardcore RPGer. I mean, what, close to 4,000 hours of Skyrim. It says a lot. And
Yeah.
I gotta say, it has been years since I played a game where I'm just so sucked into it, where I can I just last night started to recover from, okay, I need to go to bed at not 5 o'clock in the morning, for example, just playing nonstop. And the problem with me is since I work at home, I can kind of choose my hours, so it's I don't have to get up at a specific time. But that game has just really sucked me in. The art, the character design, the story. It's also not politically correct, and I love that. I was
Yeah.
actually going to make a
That's a
formal video
breath of
about
fresh
this
air.
in a week when I'm done with the game, why it's so successful. It takes all these human elements and it has none of this politically correct shit. And this is a newcomer to the Witcher series. I mean, I had to read up on the history, and it's still confusing because there's so many details. It's just they just did an amazing job. If you get the game, if you can't play it on
A
PC or whatever,
good,
play it
a
on.
good fucking game, man. Like how? God, it's so hard to find that
Well,
nowadays.
I can tell you what a good game is. A game that just has got you sucked in, and that game, even this it's so massive. Let me check my Steam. So my Steam says that on The Witcher I have 77 hours, and I don't even think I'm a third through. I think I'm not even a quarter through the game because there's so
Wow.
many side quests, interesting things, equipment retrieval because the
Wow.
equipment has history and it's there's the political intrigue there. I mean, there's even one point where you can help craft a play because it's part of a. It's just and the
See,
choices
that's
matter.
awesome.
It's just wow. I mean, when I just discovered this recently because I had lost faith in most of the companies that traditionally produced RPG games. And I just thought, wow, this game really has it all. Is it perfect? No. I mean, as I said, I have a major bug that hopefully they'll address because I'm kind of stuck and I can't proceed.
Yeah.
But nothing's perfect. But the art is just stunning. The music, I mean, it depends on what you're. The geographies, the cultures. There's this one area called Skellig, and it resembles so much of Scotland and Ireland. I spent months to a year traveling through Ireland and Scotland in my youth, and the music, everything is there. It's just a fantastic
Beautiful.
game. Yeah, it's just
Beautiful.
really. If you check out the official soundtrack, which I'm sure you guys could check out on YouTube, it's a really well done game. If you don't like RPGs, you probably won't like it. But if you like strong character driven RPGs that allow you just flexibility in how you design your character. Like right now, I went completely magic. Since I'm stuck because of this bug, I'm going to start a new one and I'm going to try out exclusively alchemy, which is another branch. And there's just so much you can do. I mean, there's no there's no woman in the world that can beat that. Let me tell you.
No way, man. There's no way a woman can beat that.
No, no.
No.
So, that I want to finish that. I want to do an official review on the gaming channel and then I want to talk about the elements that can make a game successful on the Thinking-Ape channel because I think it's important that we distinguish this because we can understand why this game is successful in spite of not being politically correct by way of contrast with some other companies like BioWare that have just totally, gone
Yes.
down a different route and unfortunately have lost my interest. I've no confidence, no faith in them anymore, and a lot of it's just it's due to being pandering and stuff like that. That's just not the way. I think
I'm very picky about the games that I play, man.
so
I'm
am I
very picky.
in old age, and I think the hallmark of success, really is when you do. These guys, CD Project Red, they're passionate about what they do. They're
Yeah.
interested, and they just kind of pursue this vision relentlessly, and you get a phenomenal product
Yeah.
rather than pandering to some. Do we have the giant bisexual bull guy with a fucking 40 centimeter cock? You check, good. Next guy, the stuff like that. It's just
Yeah, it's
it's
just
it's
bullshit.
it's just nonsense and it's irrelevant. And like I said, I'm 77 hours in the game, and I don't even think I have a quarter done. So it's a lot to take in, and just been thoroughly enjoying it. So anyway, that would explain
Anybody that tells me that they've been that far into a game and they still enjoy it, it makes me want to play that game.
Well, like I said, I don't look. I'm people know my gaming channel and certainly Thinking Ape. I'm pretty critical. That is, I think things over. I'm not just gonna say, "Amazing game, guys, check it out." No, I played it. It really is. Yeah, it's not perfect. There's a few issues. Like I said, I have a semi-major quest that I can't proceed on because of an infinite loading screen. I hope they fix that
Mm.
bug, and I'm pretty sure they will. But it just combines so many things. At first, I was a bit worried because the protagonist is a fixed one, and I prefer probably to kind of make my own. But then again, he you can really kind of feel for the character and his struggles because he's got a distinct personality, and you can kind of shape that. And it's
Well, you have to realize, man, that for most, I mean, let's think about our lives and our experience of gaming. Most of the time, we had a fixed character to play with, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it depends. I mean, there has been a tradition of choose your own, which is what Skyrim is. I really like that, but There's
Yeah.
some this guy Geralt the Witcher. He's a really cool guy, and I think he just I kind of look at him. He's kind of a MGTOW in some way. The man going his own way. I kind of
Nice.
definitely look at him. And, I mean, he does have his love interests, like admittedly, but he just kind of does his own thing, and he realizes that you can't please everyone. So in this world that he inhabits, there are these political intrigues and war and conflicts, and which side do you side with, and who knows, and because it's all just gray, and it's yeah,
Nice.
just really, really, really nice game. And anyone who hasn't played it, check it out. Definitely worth it. And CD Projekt Red is good about a lot of the DLC. So a lot of the minor DLC is just going to be kind of added for free. And there are about 30 hours, 30 to 40 hours of story plan DLC, which is paid for, but it's going to be extensive coming down the pipeline. And I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, I've not been this passionate about a game in years, I think. And
Nice.
the
Nice.
attention it's been given is well warranted. And like I said, I just hope they release a patch to fix a couple of bugs. But no game is perfect, so that's
Well, I get I constantly get drawn into the gaming world because of my son,
mm,
and
yeah.
he's always like, Dad, can we get this game? Can we get this game? Can you download this game? Can we buy this game? And I'm very familiar with the concept of like, this is not really a game yet. The people
Mm.
put out these games and it's not
No,
complete. It's
this
like,
is okay. They're bugs. There's no game without bugs, but you have to just look at. I can't even run it on ultra, but I mean the art, everything. It's vast. You see a mountain, you can explore it. You can freaking sail in a ship across the ocean, be attacked by harpy. It's just I feel
beautiful.
like I'm in a completely different world. I got this. I'm a man with a mission, but then again, this villager approaches me, and you're a witcher, which is a professional monster hunter. He's this contract, and even the smallest detail, these monster contracts. You can see how distraught they are because their loved one's been kidnapped or whatever, and then you have to break the news that they've been devoured by an insect monster, and it's just you can take a kind of hard ass line, and sometimes they're not willing to pay up, and then it's just it's just kind of almost near endless possibilities. You have
Awesome.
the
Awesome.
storyline, and it's worth just someone who just up until a couple of weeks ago didn't know the basic history of this world, the Witcher world, which is all based on this Polish author who wrote the Witcher series years ago. It's worth. It's
Really?
just really. Oh yeah, it's based on a book, and I think, the more I think about it, the more the impression I get that a series that has a solid sort of book backing tends to be quite good. I mean, look at the
Yeah.
success of Game of Thrones, as a TV
Hmm.
series, but they already had something to work with when they could build upon it, which they've done tremendously successfully. And so yeah, they had this rich world, and just trying to figure out all the politics and stuff. It's kind of got everything going. Even as someone personally who has in real life no interest in romance, even the romances I've found are pretty well done. You know, you have options there. It's also mature. So I don't really have any outright criticism of the game. Like I said, there's this bug that I'd hope they fix soon. But apart from that, yeah, it's been a blast, and I'm
Shit,
only a
man.
quarter through. And according to the developers, there are a serious number of very distinct endings to the game. So, there's replayability. Like I said, since I'm kind of stuck right now, I'm going to try a different build using alchemy as opposed to magic. That might be harder, different weapons.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's just, it gives you everything. It has the story. For those of you who are I'm a micromanager when it comes to the details, things like alchemy and magic and character builds. I'm fascinated by that. Fact is, that's how my channel actually got quote unquote big, how I grew my numbers back in the day. I was playing a game, and I was the only one at the beginning to offer sort of character builds on how would you build this character, what kind of
Right.
perks and things like that. So I enjoy that sort of thing, and I've been talking so much about The Witcher. Obviously, Witcher 3, it's really good, and I can only recommend it. I mean, check out the video on my gaming channel. I've already shared it on Google, so it should be available.
Did you do a let's play or just
I'm not
the
there yet
review?
because I want to actually. I'm actually fuck. I'm a bit overwhelmed when it comes to. I suck at Let's Plays, and I know you guys. I have a bad track record. I've only finished one game series, the Mass Effect, as a Let's Play, and I've started a bunch and never finished. But
You
I'm
did a
just
Mass Effect Let's Play?
yeah, I did. And I played as a woman because
I gotta
I
check that
actually
out,
I
man.
obviously hate women, right? So that's why I play femshep. But you know, I was anyway. Yeah, you can check it out. It's all there. But for The Witcher, it's just
Cool,
so
man.
massive. I don't even know how I would approach it. I'm still thinking about how I'm going to go about it. But you know, I want to finish the game
You
first.
should try a couple Let's Play videos with The
No, I'll
Witcher.
definitely try it out. I want to once I get a little bit more familiar with I want to just talk about kind of builds, how to build your Geralt. That won't be a Let's Play, but at least give some people some insight. And you
Right.
know, we'll see. But I'm kind of waiting for another game that could accommodate the sort of build your
Shit,
character kind of thing.
if you do a Let's Play, man, I'll be watching that for sure, man.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I have a pretty distinctive Let's Play style. It doesn't appeal to everyone, but I'm pretty. I don't try to not be myself.
Yeah.
So I'm not, offering this sort of fake, guys, check it out, that kind of thing. It's just,
I know.
I don't.
I really get into the Let's Plays because of my kid, right?
Well, I
And
mean, I think The Witcher. Man, like I said, it's not perfect, but fuck, I as far as role playing games are concerned, it's closer to that than anything I've encountered. I mean, I was someone who was a huge fan of BioWare games and whatever until they decided that the essential component of game is you have to have the giant bisexual huge cock bull man, and if you don't have him, it's not a good game kind of thing.
did you ever get into like RPG dice games?
Oh
When you're
well,
young?
certainly back in the day, I was a latecomer to computer technology. I had to teach myself a lot, for work reasons as well as just catching up with the youngsters. And
Hmm.
in the 80s and in the early 90s, I played a lot of Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, man.
The
Yeah.
editions
Yeah.
changed too much, and it's kind of like the comic book story. It sort of became D&D went through with I last time I checked I was with 3.5. Now they're on, I think 5.0. I don't even know anymore. And
Probably like 7 point
it
something
just
now.
kind of it changed so much, but I still for a while kept up with the novels. A lot of the
Mm.
novels, say in the Forgotten Realms,
Yeah.
and
You ever ever
R.A.
you ever
Salvatore, for example.
you ever play Neverwinter? Because that's
Sure,
sort of
sure,
the
sure. Of course,
yeah, yeah,
that was a
yeah,
classic Bioware. No, so that was Obsidian actually, and
yeah,
that was a really good game based off of Forgotten Realms. Always loved the Forgotten Realms.
yeah.
I,
It's
I
good stuff, man.
yeah, I mean, I know at least up until recently the history of the Forgotten Realms kind of still inside out, and love the mythology and the interactions, and it's absolutely fascinating stuff.
I'm trying to get my kid into that.
Well, you can't force people that if he's
Yeah.
not interested, then he's not interested. But I think for the most part that kind of harks back to a bygone era. The time, I mean, these days I gotta say, for example, Obsidian put out this game, Pillars of Eternity, which I enjoyed for a while, but with limited resources, etc. The then I changed to Witcher 3 with the visuals and the voice acting, and it's just
Yeah.
I gotta say,
It
that
pales in comparison. Yeah, I know what
unfortunately,
you mean.
yeah, but but they did a good job with it. It's not just visuals; it's story.
Yeah, yeah,
It's everything is kind of there. It's huge. I mean, I love just sailing out in the frozen ocean and yeah, gulping down potions, and it's just yeah, it's got everything. But tabletop, I don't know. It's hard to. I can't really imagine going back to that. Maybe because I've been spoiled, but who knows?
it's a different time. It's a different era.
That said, I'm still open to new things. A year ago I started playing a shooter that I still more or less play, and I never played shooters, and I had to do a lot of catching up, especially in my age, and I got pretty decent at it.
Nice.
Competitive shooter. Still make videos on it sometimes, but
Last time I was in Canada, God, how many years ago was that? That I actually spent time there. I was playing a Star Wars game
okay.
with some buddies. Um, RPG, dice.
Well, there are a million variants, right? I don't know if you
Yeah.
heard of the World of Darkness. That was a good one with Vampire the Masquerade and Werewolf the There, that's another series that I used to enjoy playing. A lot of,
Mm.
I mean, they're really just the possibilities are pretty limitless. They're still waiting for a bunch of games to come out eventually. I don't. You've heard of the Fallout series, for example?
Yes, 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 I have.
It's one of the grand mysteries of the universe. Everyone's waiting for Bethesda. You know, are they going to announce? We got the E3 conference in stinky Los Angeles. No offense, I'm not really a fan. I know you've been born there, but anyway.
I hate Los
Oh,
Angeles, man.
cool. Then we're of similar
I
mind.
fucking hate Los Angeles.
Um, but anyway, E3 conference is there in about 2 weeks' time, and they're going to announce Fallout 4. I mean, everyone's looking forward to it. Who knows? But it's I don't know. There are a lot of games I'm still
Fallout
looking.
4, right?
Well, we don't know if that's going to be the name, but last thing that was made was actually Obsidian, New Vegas,
Mm.
Fallout 3, which took place in Washington. Who knows, man?
Yeah.
I've been dying to see something like I'm a New Yorker. I'd love to see a Fallout New York,
Yeah, man.
everything
Yeah.
destroyed. But they've been working on it for a long ass time. It's even for them. We're going on 7 years now. So
That's Bethesda. That's Bethesda, right?
Bethesda,
That
Bethesda, Bethesda. Yeah, it
Bethesda.
takes but they have a kind of predictable interval. It's sort of 5 years, usually not much longer, but still, I don't know what happened. Maybe we'll hear something, maybe not. But it's a cool. I tend to be more of the fantasy type, but I can deal. I like the apocalyptic post whatever as well. I play space
As long as it's
operas.
a good story, man. That's what
Well,
I.
I think
That's.
Bethesda games, they're not really strong in the story department. They're more about kind of just customization, exploration. That's why
Hmm.
The Witcher 3 is kind of this combination of just everything you possibly want. And CD Projekt Red, I know, is working on a completely different game based also on a book series called Cyberpunk 2077, which is going to, I imagine, be of similar scale. But Bethesda is all about exploration. Create your own character. How
Yeah,
you want to
yeah,
and explore the world. Skyrim was really great for that.
yeah.
So
Skyrim was fantastic, man.
yeah, well, like I said, I got close to 4,000 hours. So
Jesus Christ, man. I
yeah,
played that game a lot, man. A lot.
yeah. Well, what's if you don't play it with mods, you're really losing out. That's my suggestion. If you haven't played it with
Yeah.
mods,
I don't get to have the mods so much because, you know what? Unfortunately, where I am here now, I most of my software is like illegal software.
uh,
It's like
yeah, okay, fair enough.
so I don't get the pleasure of the mods.
Well,
Sucks.
I mean, it's not that expensive. I mean, Skyrim is dirt cheap. I mean, look, I think if it's a company, I'd prefer not to. If it's a company I think is good, I just support them and
Yeah.
whatever.
It's just really hard to find real software here.
What do you
It's
mean
ve-
by? I mean, do you not have Steam or
I have Steam.
right?
Yeah.
So you could
I have
just.
Steam.
I mean, that's where most of my games I get, with
Yeah, but
exception.
I don't have a credit card. So how the fuck am I gonna?
Oh, do you have a PayPal?
No, I don't have. You have to have a credit card to have PayPal.
No, you don't.
Yeah, you do.
Nope. Don't have a credit card. I have a debit card, but it's not really linked to my
Well,
PayPal.
no, no, you're right. You can have a debit card, but I tried that with my debit
Yeah,
card
but
here in
isn't I mean
Indonesia,
it
and it
can't be
wouldn't let
that
me.
backwater.
No, it is. Trust me, it is. It is
Do you
very
have Western
backwater.
Union there?
Yeah, we do have
Because
Western
I
Union.
get my debit card from Western Union, and it's just you can load up there, put credit on it. Sometimes I'll buy games that way.
Really?
Yeah, it's a Mastercard. Works like any other. You just want to buy a game. I'll say I'll put €100 on it, whatever. That's I use
See,
that
I can't
sometimes.
do that here, man. I've never
Uh,
seen that. Like, every time I was in Canada, last time I was in Canada, my brother's like, "Hey, look what you can do. You can put it on your card and do this and get all these games." And I was like, "I can't do that here." Like it
man,
is,
this does sound like a
it
backwater.
it is. Trust me, man. It is very backwater
Yeah,
here
that in
in that
addition to the
regard.
weather.
Yeah.
No, 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 no. But anyway, I think guys, we've been talking for a long time though. We're kind of meandering about, so I'm gonna
Yeah.
actually close down slowly but
Okay,
surely the
man.
official aspect of this. But as we said, I do have a talk planned with Ayam about a specific topic, that is General Suharto, the deceased and
The
semi
master of
semi pseudo
Indonesia.
great dictator of Indonesia, at least
Yeah.
for 32 years. So
Hmm.
I hope that was well, a lot of material to take in and kind of meandering. Usually not my style, but I thought at least, getting back to the basics, that kind of talk it can be interesting sometimes. So hope that was pleasant and
Uh,
yeah,
you're always a welcome voice, my brother. Always.
it's
So,
appreciated.
thank you. Thank you.
So yeah, I'll leave it off for here and yeah, look forward to the comments. So everyone, take care and thank you for listening.
Goodbye.
Okay.